The Turks were stunned when the human researchers claimed his wretched planet had tremendous seas of water, but the chamber was far more stunned by what the people did. Following that, the galactic chamber was discussed in detail. They dreaded the people-quick extension. With quicker-than-light ships, the people investigated and colonized numerous planets. The chamber stressed the people's interesting flexibility and will to outlive. They chose to summon a human to the chamber to evaluate the risk. They would before long lament that choice. The destiny of the universe depended on this assembly. The galactic chamber was a gigantic dome structure. It had seats orchestrated in a semicircle with a platform within the center for speakers to address the get-together. Agents from a dozen outsider races filled the room, each wearing the particular clothing of their species. Mumbles resounded through the space as they anticipated the entry of the human designation. The huge twofold entryways at the entrance swung open, and in strode Minister Jonathan Wells, flanked by his little escort of human authorities. Wells was a forcing figure, standing at least a head taller than most of the outsiders show. He had wide shoulders and carried himself with a certain dignity. His dim hair was edited short, and his sharp blue eyes filtered the room as he drew nearer the central platform. Regarding individuals of the Galactic Committee, Wells said, his profound voice carrying through the chamber, "I am Jonathan Wells, envoy of the Terran Union I. Thank you for this opportunity to talk for the sake of my individuals." His tone was polite but firm, making it clear that he was here to speak to the human interface and would not be cowed by the committee. There were many protests from the outsider delegates, but most remained noiseless, considering the human with a blend of curiosity and trepidation, Minister Wells said the insectoid counselor Zakik. "The chamber has concerns around your species, fast extension, and innovative progression. What are your eagerness to investigate and colonize so numerous universes?" Wells met Zaki's compound eyes with a consistent look. "Counselor, are tranquil. We look forward to investigating this endless world and learning from the ponders it holds. Humankind has continuously been driven by interest and a crave to push the boundaries of our understanding. Our extension may be a characteristic outgrowth of that drive, but your colonies might infringe on the regions of other species, contributing to the reptilian counselor Skara. How can we be beyond any doubt that you'll regard our boundaries? I guarantee you. We have no want for conflict," Wells replied calmly. "We are going to stand by all set-up settlements and agreements with respect to regional claims. In the event that debate emerges, we are committed to settling it through diplomacy." The counselors traded looks, a few gesturing in endorsement, others still doubtful. The Avan counselor Creel talked up another, her plumes unsettling. "Your species has made surprising headways in innovation, far faster than any other race we have experienced. How do you clarify this? Have you been supported by some obscure advocate?" Wells' expression developed more as she watched. "No, counselor. Our advance is the result of our inventiveness and difficult work. Human researchers and engineers have pushed themselves to the limit of their capacities, driven by the need and the desire to move forward. We have created our innovation freely without external help, and will you share this innovation with us? Without a doubt, all individuals in the galactic community could benefit from your headway." Wells shook his head with regard to the counselor. "We must decrease our innovation, which is closely tied to our culture and way of life. We don't accept that it would be fitting or wise to share it indiscriminately. We trust you'll get it and respect our position on this matter." The counselors mumbled among themselves, a few clearly disappointed by Wells's reaction. The human envoy remained apathetic. His look cleared over the amassed outsiders. It was clear he would not budge on this point. As the wrangle proceeded, the pressure within the room became substantial. The people had arrived. The galactic stadia, arranged as an obscure amount and their fast rise to unmistakable quality, had unsettled numerous of the built-up powers. Wells did his best to ease their fears and console them of humanity's tranquility eagerly, but he knew it would be a tough fight. Belief was a delicate thing, and it would take time and exertion to construct bridges with these outsider societies. For now, all he might do was stand firm and speak to his species to the best of his capacity. The long run of human-outsider relations hung within the adjust, and Jonathan Wells decided to see that humankind risen from this experience as a regarded and esteemed part of the galactic community. The talk dragged on with the counselor's flame broiling me about every viewpoint of human society and culture. I did my best to reply to their questions truly and completely, but it was clear that some of them remained suspicious of our thought processes. Zorak, the reptilian counselor, was especially threatening. He inclined forward in his position, his opening understudy eyes narrowing as he murmured, "Envoy Wells, I find it troublesome to believe that your species has progressed so quickly without exterior assistance. No other race within the galaxy has accomplished such mechanical ability in such a brief time. How do you clarify this?" I met his look relentlessly. "Counselor Zorak, I assure you that our accomplishments are the result of our own endeavors. Human researchers and engineers have worked resolutely to push the boundaries of what is conceivable. We have not stolen from others or depended on any mystery sponsors." Zork scales, undulating with agitation, and he spat. "You expect us to accept that you simply created something quicker than light travel? Progressed weaponry and terraforming procedures, all on your claim, are incomprehensible. You must have had to offer assistance from somebody, or maybe you looted the ruins of a few long-dead civilizations for their insider facts." I felt my possessive mood rise at his baseless accusations. "Counselor, I take offense at the proposal that we are thieves or foragers. Humanity has earned its place among the stars through blood, sweat, and tears. We have confronted challenges and overcome deterrents that would have broken lesser species. Our victory may be a confirmation of our strength and resourcefulness." The reptilian counselor rose from his seat, his clawed hands clenched into clenched hands. "You set out to talk to me about challenges and deterrents. My individuals have endured hardships. You cannot indeed envision that we have carved out a place for ourselves in this threatening universe through sheer grit and assurance, and yet here you're, a newcomer to the galactic arrangement, claiming predominance over us all." I stood my ground, indeed, as Zorak lingered over me. "We claim nothing of the sort, counselor. We basically asked to be judged on our claim merits, not held to some inconceivable standard or accused of trickery." At each turn, the chamber ejected a cacophony of contending voices. As the other counselors started to require sides, a few protected humanity's right to keep our privileged insights, whereas others resounded Zorak's requests for straightforwardness. The talk developed more warmed by the minute until it appeared that the very foundations of the committee might disintegrate beneath the weight of the discord. Finally, in a moment of dissatisfaction, I pummeled my clenched hand down on the platform and shouted, "Enough. You need to know our mystery. I'll tell you, it's water, we have it and you do not." Hush fell over the chamber as the counselors gazed at me in shock. I took a deep breath and proceeded, my voice calmer but no less firm. "Our home soil is secured in endless seas of liquid water. This wealth has permitted us to create progress in farming, industry, and innovation. We have harnessed the power of water to fuel our ships, transform modern universes, and maintain our civilization. No other species within the galaxy has this advantage. That's the truth of our victory." The counselors mumbled among themselves, a few looking distrustful, others charmed Zorak's eyes, widening in disbelief. He murmured that no planet could have that much water and still support life. "You must be lying." I met his look, and unflinchingly, I talked as if it were the truth. "Counselor, if you question my words, send an endeavor to the soil and see for yourself. Our seas are no mystery, but they are our greatest resource and the key to our control. That's what isolates us from the rest of you. We have learned to saddle the very lifeblood of the universe itself." The chamber was quiet for a minute as the counselors processed my revelation. Zorak's eyes contracted in doubt. "You anticipate that we will accept that your success is due to something as mundane as water." I gestured assembly his look. "It's a genuine counselor. Earth is a rare gem within the system, a planet with tremendous seas of fluid water covering much of its surface. This plenitude of water has been significant to the improvement of our civilization." I turned to address the rest of the board. Our seas give us an apparently perpetual supply of life-giving assets. They control our climate, give nourishment and vitality, and bolster an endless cluster of biological systems. Our authority over water has permitted us to create progress in farming, industry, and innovation. The counselors mumbled among themselves, a few looking doubtful, others charmed. The insectoid counselor Zakik talked up, but how is this conceivable? Most of our universes are dry and fruitless, with little to no surface water. How have you accomplished so much with fair water? I grinned. It's not almost about having a water counselor, it's almost about understanding its properties and tackling its potential. Our researchers have gone through centuries considering the one-of-a-kind qualities of water, from its capacity to break down and transport supplements to its capacity for putting away and discharging vitality. We have created innovations that permit us to purify, desalinate, and recycle water with extraordinary proficiency. The Avon counselor Creole cocked her head, and you utilize this water to fuel your ships and terraform modern universes. I gestured. Yes, counselor. Our ships are fueled by advanced hydrogen fuel cells, which extricate vitality from water through electrolysis, and when we find modern tenable universes, we utilize terraforming strategies that depend on water to create steady Earth-like situations. The bulbous chamber of Vort inclined forward, his eyes shining with interest. Typically interesting. Minister, your water innovation can be of incredible advantage to numerous of the races spoken to here. Imagine the conceivable outcomes, on the off chance that we may saddle this control for ourselves. Zorak hammered his clenched hand on the table, his scales undulating with outrage. No, we cannot believe humans will share their innovations with us. They will utilize it as a weapon to control and rule us. I held up my hands in a plating. Motion counselors, if you don't mind, I get your concerns, but I guarantee you that our lives are peaceful. We have no craving to rule or control anybody. In truth, I accept that sharing our water innovation can be the key to cultivating more noteworthy participation and understanding between our races. I delayed, letting my words sink in, and I proposed a deal. The Taiwan Union is willing to share our water innovation with any race that's fascinated by trade to get access to unused domains and assets. We are going to give you the information and skills to assist you in creating your Claim Water Foundation, and in return, you'll allow us to set up colonies and exchange stations on your universes. The counselors traded looks, a few looked eager, others reluctantly hissed in protest. This can be a trick. The people will utilize their water innovation to subjugate us to create us subordinate to them, but Vort shook his head. No, Zorak, I accept Minister Wells is true. This might be a turning point for the world, a chance to construct a modern age of participation and thriving. The other counselors gestured in understanding, and I felt a surge of trust. Maybe this was the minute that humankind had been holding up for the chance to demonstrate ourselves as a force for good within the universe. I stepped forward. My voice is ringing with conviction. Counselors, I urge you to consider my proposition carefully. Together, we are able to open the privileged insights of water and use them to form a better, much better, higher, stronger, and improved future for all of our people groups. Let us produce an unused collaboration based on shared regard and shared information. Let us show the world what can be accomplished when we work together towards a common objective. The chamber emitted a buzz of energized chatter. As the counselors wrangled about the merits of my offer, I knew that there would be challenges ahead and that not everybody would be willing to believe us, but I too knew that this was a chance worth taking to construct something more prominent than ourselves, and so, with a sense of reason and assurance, I arranged to set out on an unused chapter in human history, one that would take us to the most distant parts of the system and past. The board chamber ejected into a whirlwind of warm talk as the different outsider agents responded to my proposal. Some, just like the bulbous Counselor Vort, appeared energetic to acknowledge the bargain, their eyes glimmering with the prospect of getting to our water innovation. Others, in any case, were more reluctant. Their expressions protected and suspicious Zorak, the reptilian counselor, who had been so unfriendly towards me from the beginning, was the foremost vocal in his opposition. He jumped to his feet, his scales bristling with seethe. You fools, he hissed, glaring at his individual counselors. Can't you see that this is a trick? The people cannot be trusted. He turned to me, his opening understudy, eyes narrowing. You come here to our committee and set out to create requests of us. You offer us your technology, but at what price? No, I say we take what we need by car. The chamber erupted into chaos as the other counselors shouted their suppositions, a few siding with Zorak and others contending for a more peaceful arrangement. I stood my ground. My jaw clenched as I observed the scene unfold. Abruptly, I felt a tap on my bear. One of my helpers was a youthful lady named Lieutenant Jenna Novak, inclined and near to whisper. In my ear, sir, we've gotten a pressing message from the soil. A gigantic galactic board armada has been identified, entering the sun-powered framework, and they're not reacting to our hail. My blood ran cold. As the realization hit me, Zorak had been plotting against us all along. This entire committee assembly had been nothing more than a redirection, a way to purchase time for the armada to reach and capture us off. I turned to confront the counselors. My horrid counselors, I have forgotten word that a galactic committee armada is drawing nearer soil with clear antagonistic eagerness. It seems that some of you have been plotting against us by utilizing this assembly as a diversion. Zorak's eyes broadened in shock, but he rapidly painted his highlights into a mask of anger. Babble. He sputtered that the people are lying, attempting to control us into giving them what they need. But I may see the truth in a few of the other counselors' faces. They knew that Zorak had been up to something, and they were beginning to realize it. With the total degree of his bad form, I drew myself up to my full stature. My voice is ringing out clear and solid, counselors. I came here in great confidence looking for a modern collusion between our people groups, but it is evident presently that there are those among you who don't share that goal, so be it. I turned to my designation, my expression furious. We are not going to stand idly by, whereas our domestic world is debilitated. The Terran Union will protect the soil with all our might, and we will not rest until the Galactic Council's armada is driven from our system. With that, I raged out of the council chamber. My delegation, following near behind, had preparations to form and a war to battle the destiny of soil and the long term of the galaxy hung within the adjust. As we rushed back to our carry, Lieutenant Novak fell into step. Next to me, sir, what's our arrangement? She inquired, her voice tight with pressure. I gritted my teeth, my intellect, and dashing Weck got to mobilize each transport and trooper we have. I said I needed a full protective border around the soil, and I needed our best pilots on the front lines. We'll appear in the galactic chamber. What happens when they mess with humankind? Novak gestured, her expression bleak. And what about the water innovation? In case the board gets their hands on it, I shook my head. That's not progressing to happen. We'll pass on some time. Recently, we let them take. What's our own? We boarded the shuttle and strapped ourselves to the motors. Murmuring to life, as we arranged to leave, I might feel the eyes of the chamber on us as we lifted off, but I denied to see back. There would be time for discretion afterward, on the off chance that we survived the coming fight. Currently, all that matters is guarding our domestics and our way of life. The humans had to work as well as be difficult and come too distant to let it all be taken away by a bunch of control-hungry outsiders as we broke the climate and set a course for Earth-I. I couldn't offer assistance but felt a sense of terrible determination. The Galactic Committee had no thought what they were in, for the people would battle to the final breath to ensure what was theirs, and on the off chance that it came down to it, we would appear to them that the true power of water, the exceptionally substance that had given us life and permitted us to flourish among the stars, would presently end up our most prominent weapon. The board needed our innovation. They would need to pry it from our cold, dead hands. The carry shivered as we hit the hop point, the stars obscuring into streaks of light as we rushed through space towards our predetermination towards war. The EDF Command Center was a hive of movement, cautions, blurred and ready lights that flashed as staff hurried to their stations. Common Marcus RHS stood at the center of the chaos, his steely look settled on the holographic show of the Earth's solar system. A gigantic armada of outsider ships was closing in on the planet, their eagerness clear. What's the status of our protections? RHS yapped. All ETF warriors are prepped and prepared to convey. Detailed Lieutenant, Commander, Olivia, and Prescott orbital defense stages are online and focusing on the adversary. Armada RHS gestured his jaw. Clenched good, we hit them with everything we've got. He turned to address his strike group handpicked for this basic mission Lieutenant, Sarah Chen, the EF's best pilot, who stood at attention. Her protective cap, tucked beneath her arm, Captain Akira Tanaka, a brilliant strategist, considered the holographic show eagerness. Ajin Tanaka, you'll lead the warrior squadrons that requested lock-in, the adversary armada, and purchase us a few times. We got to keep them absent from the Earth's circle at all costs. Chen saluted strongly. Yes, sir, we won't let you down. Tanaka gestured with his expression. I've analyzed their armada composition. It won't be simple, but I have a couple of procedures in mind. RHS clasped a hand on Tanaka's bear. I believe your judgment, Captain, does anything it takes to keep our individuals secure. As the strike group rushed to their warriors, they observed the holographic show with developing unease. The Galactic Committee Armada was not at all like anything they had ever confronted some time recently. The ships were gigantic, overshadowing, indeed the ETF's most imposing vessels. Their frames glimmered with an otherworldly amalgam, and interesting energy signatures beat from their weapons clusters within the storage inlet. Chen climbed into the cockpit of her warrior, a smooth and spry make planned for high-speed combat. She ran through the pre-flight checks with practiced productivity, her fingers moving over the controls, all frameworks gone. She detailed over the seat, prepared to kick a few outsider as Tanaka's voice crackled over the channel. It remained centered. These folks engage in cruel commerce. The EDF warriors propelled into space, streaking towards the drawing nearer foe armada. As they drew closer, Chen felt a rising sense of unease. The chamber ships were indeed more forcing up near their frames, bristling with advanced weaponry. All of a sudden, a torrent of vitality bars speared out from the closest board transport, cutting through space with deadly accuracy. Chen yanked her warrior into a sharp jump, barely dodging the assault. Do not let them bolt onto you, the EDF warriors scattered, weaving and evading as the chamber ships opened fire. The space around them was lit up with blasts and burning vitality pillars. Chen gritted her teeth as she rolled and spun her warrior, attempting to remain one step ahead of the enemies, focusing on frameworks. Their shields are as well solidly detailed. Another pilot froze, edging his voice. Our weapons can't enter them. Chen observed in frightfulness as an EDF warrior took a coordinate hit. Its frame immediately vaporized beneath the invasion. She gulped, constraining down the rising fear in her throat. We had to discover a shortcoming. Tanaka said, his voice was tense over the comm explorer for any openings or vulnerabilities. Chen checked the closest board dispatch, looking for any in its armor. Abruptly, she spotted a glint of development close to the ship's area there. She called out a few kinds of vitality vacillations and closed their motors. It could be a frail point. Tanaka's voice crackled with energy and a good eye. Chen. All warriors concentrate their fire on the enemy's arc segments for those vitality changes. The EDF warriors regrouped, swarming around the board like irate hornets. They centered their assaults on the after segments, pouring laser fire and rockets into the flashing vitality areas. To begin with, the committee dispatch appeared unaffected, their shields retaining the brunt of the attack, but as the EDF fighters squeezed their assault, the vitality vacillations started to develop more articulately, starting and beating whimsically. It's working, Chen yelled, a furious smile spreading over her face. Keep hitting them. The ships shivered beneath the invasion, their shields glinting, and vacillating blasts bloomed over their frames as the ETF warriors found their stamp tearing through the debilitated armor. But even as the tide of fight appeared to turn in their favor, Chen knew that the battle was far from over. The chamber armada was endless, and their innovation was still not prevalent in anything the EF had. They would require each ounce of aptitude, strength, and assurance to hold the line and secure their domestic soil was checking on them, and disappointment was not a choice. As the fight seethed on, Chen held the controls of her warrior firmly, her eyes narrowed in concentration, and she would battle to her final breath to guard her individuals and her planet, no matter the toll taken. The HFY would stand against the galactic chamber and appear to be the genuine quality of humankind. The lanes of modern York City declined into a war zone. Store windows smashed as raiders snatched anything nourishment and supplies they might carry. Clinch-hand battles broke out as desperate citizens fought over the final remaining assets. The NYPD attempted to re-establish order, but they were hopelessly dwarfed revolt shields, broken beneath a cost of rocks, flotsam, and jetsam as irate swarms surged through the blockades. In comparative scenes played out in cities over the globe, in London, the notorious ready double-decker buses burned, set on fire by froze agitators. The skyscrapers of Tokyo reverberated with the wail of sirens as the city descended into chaos as Moscow tanks rolled down the lanes. As the Russian government announced military law, President Elena Martinez observed the news feeds with an overwhelming heart. She had trusted to keep the Galactic Council's approaching assault mystery to maintain a strategic distance from causing a freeze, but the data had spilled, and presently the world was tearing itself apart. She knew she had to act quickly before it was too late. Martinez strode into the White House briefing room. Her confront set with assurance, and the room was stuffed with columnists, all clamoring for answers. She ventured up to the platform and raised her hand to quiet my individual Americans. She started her voice, relentless and clear. I know you're frightened. I know you're angry, but presently, more than ever, we must stand together as one individual, one country. The report fell quiet, hanging on her every word. The Galactic Chamber is coming together. They look for ways to devastate us and wipe humankind from the face of the world, but we are not going to let that happen. We are going to battle back with each ounce of quality and boldness. We have stopped letting her words hit home for quite a long time. Our top researchers and specialists have been dealing with a mystery project, a weapon that could reverse the situation of this conflict. Today, I can finally uncover reality for the world. We call it the Aegis, a mumble of fervor undulating through the room. The Aegis is an enormous orbital guard stage, outfitted with the most progressive weaponry and protecting innovation at any point created by human hands. It is our last line of protection. The main thing that stands among us and all-out demolition. Martinez's eyes blasted with furious assurance at this very moment. The Aegis is fueling up its weapons, planning to draw on the adversary armada, our bold people in uniform. Stand prepared to shield our reality, regardless of the expense, and I request every single one of you to do likewise. Stand with us, battle with us, and together we will win. The room emitted praise as the correspondents jumped to their feet. Martinez gestured drearily, realizing that the genuine fight was simply starting high over the earth. The Aegis hung in space like a quiet gatekeeper, its smooth rakish frame seethed with rocket launchers and laser cannons, prepared to release damnation on the oncoming foe armada inside the EEG's war room. A group of exceptionally prepared administrators observed the stage frameworks, making last arrangements for the approaching fight. They worked with serious quietness, their countenances lit by the shine of holographic shows and blazing control boards. Approaching foe contacts bearing 270 got down on one of the administrators, her voice tight with pressure range of 50,000 kilometers and shutting quick. Initiate point safeguard frameworks, requested the EG's commandant, a grizzled veteran named Colonel Jake Hawkins. Get ready to connect on my imprint. The administrators got a move on, fingers flying over the controls outside the EEG's weapon frameworks, murmured to life, locking onto the coming targets procured, detailed another administrator, his temple wrinkled in focus rocket coves 1 through 6 stacked and prepared to fire. Colonel Hawkins gestured, his jaw set with troubling assurance, fire with a thunder that shook the actual texture of the room. The Aegis released its most memorable salvo of rockets. The shots strewn towards the adversary armada, leaving trails of white-hot plasma afterward, yet the Cosmic Committee ships were prepared. Their energy safeguards erupted to life, retaining the effect of the rockets with scarcely a flash. The outsider vessels returned fire, spearing out with burning light emissions. That banged into the EG safeguards, making the whole stage shiver. Safeguards, holding at 80% detail, one of the administrators, her voice stressed with exertion, yet they won't keep going long under this sort of discipline. Colonel Hawkins gritted his teeth, his brain dashing as he attempted to concoct an arrangement. The Aegis was the most remarkable weapon humankind had at any point made. However, even it couldn't remain solitary against the could of the cosmic chamber. They required a supernatural occurrence, and afterward, as though, in reply to his requests, another voice snapped over the communication framework, AGIS. "This is Lieutenant Chen of the EDF Strike Group. We have you covered." Colonel Hawkins felt a flood of trust as he watched the multitude of human contenders streak towards the foe armada and their weapons, bursting the HFY pilots' and evading through the hail of foe discharge. Drawing the gathering, the boat's consideration away from the Aegis made some serious trouble for them. Chen Hawkins murmured faintly, "We'll take any assistance we can get." The fight seethed on the Aegis, and the DF contenders cooperating to hang tight against the outsider invasion blasts illuminated the void of room as boats on the two sides endured shots and went crazy. However, even as they battled with all that, they had Colonel Hawkins realized that the situation was anything but favorable for them. The Cosmic Board's boats were simply too strong, their innovation excessively progressed. They required a game-changer, something that could steer the results in support of themselves, and afterward, instantly of unexpected motivation. Hawkins remembered something that Minister Wells had said during his discourse to the Cosmic Gathering: water, Earth's most valuable asset, the one thing that put it aside from each and every other world in the universe, and the Aegis had been furnished with the most progressive water-based weaponry. At any point created, Colonel Hawkins threw his clenched hand down on the comm button. His heart is beating with fervor. "Chen, I really want you to delay. He said we would hit these rats with something they'd never seen before." "Roger that, Colonel." came. Chink answered, her voice popping with static. "We'll keep him occupied." Hawkins went to his team, his eyes bursting sincerely, and actuated the Hydra cannons. He requested full power, but the administrators delayed the slightest bit, their eyes wide with shock. "Yet, sir," one of them dissented. "We've never tried those weapons in a real battle. We don't have any idea what they'll do, we don't have a decision." Hawkins said it's presently or never. The administrators gestured their countenances with dismal determination. They entered the initiation codes, and the Aegis started to murmur with another sort of force. Profound inside the guts of the stage, monstrous tanks of water started to beat and bubble. As the Hydra guns fueled up, the water was implanted with a unique sort of nanite tech innovation intended to enter even the hardest safeguards, and afterward, with a thunder that shook the actual underpinnings of the earth. The Aegis released its distinct advantage, a downpour of superheated water, impacted out from the Hydra cannons banging into the Cosmic Gathering ships. With the power of 1,000 torrents, the outsider vessels reeled under the effect, their safeguards glinting and bombing as the water tore through their frames like tissue paper. The EDF contenders cheered as they watched the hostile boats detonate into billows of steam and flotsam and jetsam their once powerful structures decreased to just broken wrecks, yet even as they celebrated, Colonel Hawkins realized that the fight was nowhere near finished. The Cosmic Board wouldn't mess with this loss. They would be back with considerably more noteworthy numbers and, surprisingly, further developed innovation. However, for the present, the Earth was protected. The Aegis had demonstrated its worth, and humankind had built the system so that it wouldn't go down easily. As the Aegis hung in space, its hydro cannons were actually steaming from the overwhelming intensity of war. Colonel Hawkins permitted himself a little grin of fulfillment. They had won the day, yet the conflict was simply starting. Dr. Lena Simpson slouched over her magnifying instrument, her temple wrinkled in fixation. She had been breaking down examples of Earth's water for quite a while, attempting to open its insider facts, and presently, at last, she had found something mind-boggling. She fixed up a smile spreading across her face. She yelled, surprised. Her lab colleagues, "I have it," the collaborators gathered around her, their eyes wide with interest. "What is it, Dr. Simpson?" one of them inquired. "What did you find?" Simpson held up a vial of clear fluid, her eyes shining with fervor. This, she said, is Water X, an uncommon isotope that exists just in the Earth's water, and it can possibly make a huge difference. She proceeded to make sense of her discoveries, her voice ascending with each new detail. Water X, she said, had an unrivaled capacity to store and deliver energy. It could drive whole urban communities with only a couple of drops, and it was totally spotless and inexhaustible. The partners tuned in amazement, their psyches hustling with the ramifications. In the event that what Dr. Sensen was talking about was valid, Earth had quite recently turned into the most important planet in the system. However, Sensen's energy was touched with dread. That's what she knew. Whether the cosmic chamber learned about HFYs, they would remain determined to get their hands on it. Earth's water would turn into a milestone, and mankind would be trapped in the crossfire. She needed to move quickly. She got her communicator and punched in a code, her fingers shaking somewhat broad. RHS, she said when the call associated this as Dr. Sensen. I want your assistance. RHS listened eagerly as Sensen made sense of the circumstances. His face became troubling as he understood the gravity of the disclosure. I'll send a group to promptly get to the office. He said we can't allow the chamber to get their hands on this sensual gesture of alleviation washing over her. She realized that RHS was a man who could be depended on and that he would do everything possible to safeguard water. As the call finished, Sensen went to her for help. We have work to do, she said, her voice loaded up sincerely. We want to figure out how to tackle the force of HFYs quickly. The destiny of our planet relies on it. The colleagues gestured their countenances with resolve. They realized that they were near the very edge of something world-changing, and they were prepared to do anything it took to get it going. Surprisingly fast, the HFY's research office was transformed into a fortification. Warriors watched the edge with their weapons primed and ready, and researchers worked non-stop hustling to open the mysteries of the isotope. Dr. Sensen was scarcely dozed, energized by a combination of energy and dread. She realized that they were in a race against time and that each second considered the day extended into weeks. The group gained ground. They found that aqua water could be balanced out and bridled utilizing an extraordinary regulation field, and that it very well may be utilized to control everything from shuttles to weapons. However, even as they made leaps forward, the danger of the cosmic board posed a potential threat. Scouts revealed that chamber ships were massing on the edge of the nearby planet group, getting ready for an all-out attack. General RHS realized that they were using up all available time. He met with Dr. Sensen and her group. His face was fixed with stress. We want to figure out how to weaponize HFYs. He said it could be our main opportunity against the board. Sensen was torn between her craving to safeguard the Earth and her apprehension about what HFYs could become in some unacceptable hands. However, she realized that the streets were correct. They had no way out. The group worked hard to adjust their control fields into weapons frameworks. They made rockets that could convey payloads of water and safeguards that could outfit their energy to redirect adversary fire, and afterward, at last, they were prepared. As the gathering armada moved toward the Earth, the people were ready to make their stand. The Aegis fueled up its Water X weapons, and the HFY contenders stacked their rockets. Dr. Sensen watched from the examination office, her heart beating with a combination of pride and fear. She realizes that the destiny of her planet remained in a precarious situation and that all that she had worked for was on the line. However, she also realizes that the people had a secret weapon. They had HFYs, and they had the fortitude and assurance to utilize it. What's more, as the main shots were discharged, she realized that the Earth could at absolutely no point ever go back in the future. The Aegis balanced in the obscurity of the room is a shining, encouraging sign for mankind. Colonel Hawkins watched the holographic presentations with a troubling grin as the stage weapons tore through the cosmic board armada, similar to a hot blade through margarine. The hostile transport folded and detonated under the surge, their once powerful safeguards glinting and bombing continuing to discharge. Hawkins requested his voice. Consistently, don't allow them an opportunity to refocus. The Aegis group consented to savage productivity, pouring a tenacious stream of laser and rocket fire into the foe positions. The board ships endeavored to return fire. However, their weapons sprinkled innocuously against the Aegis' high level of safeguarding. Amidst the turmoil, the HFY contenders did and wound around, taking out strays and harrying. On the adversary's flanks, Lieutenant Chen whooped with satisfaction as her rockets tracked down their imprint, decreasing a board frigate to a haze of growing garbage. Pleasant shot, Chen Chief Tanaka brought out over the comm. Keep it up, individuals, we got them on the ropes on the ground. The EDF warriors dove in around the edge of the water, their weapons prepared for the sky. They realized that the group would remain determined to hold onto the valuable isotope, and they were ready to battle, including every person to guard it. Inside the office, Dr. Sensen and her group worked hard to disentangle the secrets of Aquax. They had previously found that the isotope could be utilized to make extraordinarily strong weapons. However, they expected to figure out how to settle it and make it all right for use. I think I have it, Dr. Sensen said, her eyes broadening with fervor. On the off chance that we utilize a quantum field to contain the Water X, we ought to have the option to saddle its power with next to no risk of shakiness. Her colleagues gestured in arrangement, their appearances fixed with depletion yet additionally with savage assurance. They realized that they grasped the way to triumph, and they wouldn't rest until they had opened its maximum capacity, as the fight seethed on the tide. To turn for the people, the Aegis and the HFY warriors worked as a unified whole, efficiently destroying the gathering armada transport by transport. The foe's positions diminished, and their development started to disintegrate. Until at long last, the last couple of boats retreated in fear and escaped, limping away from Earth's circle in shame in the Aegis war room. The group ejected in cheers and praise. Colonel Hawkins hung back in his seat, a weight training from his shoulders. They had made it happen. They had beaten back the committee and safeguarded their home. However, even as the people commended their triumph, another danger arose. A huge, obscure vessel unexpectedly showed up all of a sudden, predominating even the biggest of the committee ships. It hung in space like an extraordinary dull shadow, its surface seething with peculiar outsider weaponry abruptly. The vessel started shooting its weapons, slicing through both human and chamber ships effortlessly. The Aegis shivered under the effect of its safeguard stressing to keep down the surge. What in blazes is that thing? Colonel Hawkins requested, his eyes wide with shock and dread obscure. Sir, one of the administrators answered, her voice shaking. She's not enrolling in any of our data sets. The EDF warriors mixed to connect with the new adversary, yet they were horrendously outclassed. The obscure vessel smacked them to the side, similar to flies, its weapons slicing through their bodies like paper on the ground. The EDF fighters watched with sickening dread as the sky above them loaded up with the consuming destruction of humans, and the committee sent the same. They realized that they were confronting an enemy that was beyond anything they had at any point experienced, and that their possibilities of endurance were thin. Yet even notwithstanding this new danger, the people wouldn't surrender. They had overcome much and contended energetically to allow an obscure foe to grab triumph from their grip. They would battle on regardless of the chances, and they would figure out how to win. As the obscure vessel proceeded with its persevering attack, the people set themselves up for the skirmish of their lives. The battle for Earth had just barely started, and they wouldn't rest until they had arisen successful, regardless of the expense. The Aegis shook fiercely as the obscure vessel released a torrent of dim energy radiates, tearing through the stage safeguards like they were made of paper. Sparkles flew from the control center, and group individuals were tossed to the floor as the effects shook the war room report. Colonel Hawkins woofed, grasping the arms of his seat to steady himself. Our safeguards are down to 20%. Sir, one of the administrators answered, her voice tight with dread. We can't take significantly more of this. Hawkins gritted his teeth. This new foe had surprised them totally, and their weapons were not normal for anything he had at any point seen. He observed weakly as the gigantic boat cut a war zone through the human and committee armadas. Its light emissions and haziness are slicing through ships like a hot blade through spread. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the foe vessel. One more administrator got down and put it through Hawkins. He requested the fundamental view screen flashed to life, uncovering the essence of an ugly outsider animal. Its skin was a wiped-out, dark variety, and its eyes gleamed with a frightful red light. When it talked, its voice was a throaty growl that creeped out people, and the animal snarled. "You have something that has a place with us. Give up the water right away or face demolition." Hawkins experienced a flood of wrath. "I don't have the foggiest idea who on earth you are," he snapped, "yet we're not giving you anything. This is our planet, and we'll protect it, including every man, the outsider." Let out an unforgiving bark of giggling, "Silly animals. We are the Void Trackers, and we have been watching you for quite a while. Your revelation of Water X undermines our arrangements for cosmic mastery, and we can't permit you to have such power. Give up now or be obliterated." The transmission cut off suddenly, leaving Hawkins and his team in paralyzed silence. They had never known about the Void Trackers, yet obviously they represented a grave danger to Earth and the whole universe. Hawkins threw his clenched hand down on the control center. Damn it, he was trapped. "We really want to figure out how to shut down these rats before they wipe us hard and fast." He went to the correspondence official. "Get me General." RHS is now a couple of seconds after the fact that RHS' face showed up on the screen. He looked fatigued and tormented, his eyes tormented by the obliteration he had seen. Colonel Hawkins said dismally, "I expect you've seen our new companions." Hawkins gestured to the Void Trackers. They called themselves. "They need the water, and they are ready to annihilate every one of us to get it. We can't allow that to occur. The water is our main desire for halting them." Concurred, Hawkins said, "Yet how would we weaponize it? We actually don't completely grasp its properties." RHS delayed the slightest bit, then, at that point, spoke. "I've been in touch with Dr. Simpson. She and her group have been working nonstop to uncover the mysteries of Aquax. They figure they could have figured out how to involve it as a weapon, yet they need additional time." Hawkins hammered his clenched hand on the control center. "Once more. Time is the one thing we don't have in general, the Void. Trackers are destroying us presently, I realize, vigorously, yet entirely. It's our main opportunity. We need to purchase Sorensen and her group as much time as possible." Hawkins took a full breath, then gestured and comprehended. "General Weck makes every effort to hang tight, yet you better tell Simpson to work quick. I don't have the foggiest idea how much longer we can wait against these beasts as the call finishes." Hawkins went to his group. "You heard that overall, we really want to delay for the eggheads to do something amazing. In this way, we should show these voids. Tracker rats. What lies under the surface for people." The group let out a reverberating cheer, their spirits lifted by Hawkins' words. They realized the chances were against them, but they were prepared to battle, including every person to shield their home. The Aegis flooded forward with its weapons, blasting bling as it charged headfirst into the conflict. The EDF warriors united behind the stage, shaping a defensive screen as they drew in the void. Tracker's boat, the fight was furious and fierce, with misfortunes mounting on the two sides. The Void Tracker transport appeared to disregard even the most remarkable of the people assaults, its safeguards, engrossing the energy and reflecting it back at them. However, the people wouldn't surrender. They battled with frantic wrath, emptying all that they had into the battle. They knew that the destiny of their reality and maybe the whole universe lay on their shoulders, and as the fight seethed on, Hawkins could trust that Dr. Simpson and her group would figure out how to weaponize the water in time, assuming that if they bombed, their penances would be all in vain and the void. Trackers would be allowed to overcome the universe unopposed, yet he shoved those considerations to the side and zeroed in on the job needing to be done. They had something important to take care of, and they would own it as far as possible, regardless of the expense. Dr. Simpson cleared the perspiration off of her forehead as she slouched over the lab seat, her eyes locked on the gleaming blue vial of water around her. Different researchers worked with frantic direness, their countenances drawn, and their developments berserk. "We really want to figure out how to settle the isotope," Dr. Simpson quieted, more to herself than to any other individual. "In the event that we can mix it into our ammo, we could get an opportunity to fill those voids." Tracker Rats, her colleague, a young fellow named Dr. Patel, turned upward from his own work, yet how would we do that without causing a horrendous chain reaction? The energy result of water X is not normal for anything we've at any point seen. Dr. Simpson shook her head and her brain. Dashing, we'll need to figure out how to contain it to channel its power into a controlled delivery, perhaps some sort of particular packaging. She followed off her eyes, broadening as a thought came to fruition in her psyche. She got a close-by information cushion and started drawing out a harsh plan, her fingers flying over the screen. Indeed, that is all there is to it. She shouted, holding up the information cushion for Dr. Patel to check whether we utilize a tungsten or titanium compound for the projectile housings and add an attractive regulation field to the terminating instrument. We ought to have the option to saddle the force of water without failing to keep a grip on it. Dr. Patel concentrated on the plan, his forehead wrinkled in fixation. It's unsafe, he said finally, yet it may very well work. We'll have to run a few reenactments, certainly. Dr. Simpson gestured, previously moving to the closest workstation. I'll move on from that immediately. Meanwhile, we really want to begin efficiently manufacturing these housings. We don't have a second to lose. Has the researcher attempted to weaponize water? General RH remained on the extension of the Aegis, his eyes fixed on the strategic showcase. The Void Tracker's Dren posed a potential threat on the screen, a gigantic, threatening presence that appeared to gobble up everything around it. We really want to move that thing away from Earth, RHS snarled, his jaw gripped tight. In the event that it gets close enough to the planet, we as a whole are dead. Commander Tanaka, remaining next to him, gestured terribly, Sir, yet how would we bait it away without endangering our own powers? RHS was quiet briefly, his brain dashing. Then, at that point, gradually, a grin spread across his face. We give them an objective, they can't help it. He said a pain signal from an apparently deserted space station, one that is sufficiently far away from Earth to be enticing. Tanaka's eyes broadened in understanding a snare she said was dangerous, however, it may very well work. I'll prepare my group to communicate the sign. RHS gestured as of now. Going to Lieutenant Chen, prepare your warriors and prepare to go. He requested when that Dren took the snare. I maintain that you should hit it with everything. You have, we'll just have a single shot at this Jen, who recognized pointedly a savage smile all over. Indeed, sir, we'll make those voids. Tracker mongrels lament the day they knew about Earth as the Edge powers ready for the fight to come, the Void, Tracker's Dren, abruptly headed in a different direction, drifting away from Earth and toward the far-off space station. The snare had been set, and the adversary had taken the trap on the scaffold of the Aegis. RHS watched, the Fear Nort's progress with teased breath come on. You mongrels, he murmured faintly, somewhat further, when the Dren was out of scope of Earth. RHS provided the request to go after the Edge warriors amassed towards the hostile boat, their weapons blasting with the force of water. The specific ammo tore through the dreadnought safeguards, similar to how they were made of paper, tearing holes in its hull. The Void Trackers returned fire, their dull energy radiating, spearing out towards the Edge contenders. However, the people were prepared for them, their own safeguards, retaining the most terrible of the harm, and their pilots masterfully winding through the dangerous assault. Simultaneously, the Aegis started shooting with its own Aquax mixed weapons, the monstrous rail firearms and rocket batteries beating the Dren with persevering anger. The hostile boat shivered under the effect, its structure clasping and turning as the people's weapons tracked down their imprint. Amidst the tumult, Lieutenant Chen saw an opening. She gunned her motors and fired towards the dreadnought, winding through a hail of foe discharge with bewildering speed. Without a second to spare, she launched a volley of Aquax rockets straight into the boat's uncovered power center. The blast was blinding, a blaze of light that immediately surpassed the actual stars. When the brightness blurred the void, Tracker's Dren was a broken ruin, and its once powerful frame diminished to a curved mass of metal and trash on the scaffold of the Aegis. The group emitted cheers and commendation. They had made it happen. They had beaten back the void and saved their reality from annihilation, yet even as they celebrated, they realized that the conflict was nowhere near finished. The Void Trackers would be back, and they would look for Retribution General RHS remained at the focal point of the extension, his eyes fixed on the view screen. He realized that the hardest fights were coming up soon, yet until further notice, he permitted himself a snapshot of fulfillment. They had demonstrated that mankind wouldn't go down easily and that they had the boldness and resourcefulness to take on any enemy, regardless of how strong the general went to his team, a furious light consuming his eyes. All around good, everybody. He said, his voice ringing out across the extension, yet we can't stand to become complacent. The Void Trackers will be back, and we should be prepared for them. Dr. Sense and I believe that you and your group should continue dealing with refining our Orcs weapons. We will require each benefit we can get in the battles to come. Dr. Sensen gestured at her face, setting it sincerely. We won't let you down. We'll continue to push the limits of what's conceivable with water, and we won't stop until we've gotten humankind's position in the cosmic system. The streets gestured a horrid grin all over. If you are a specialist, the destiny of our species might well rely on you as the team of the Aegis set to work. A feeling of direction and assurance consumed the space. They had won an extraordinary triumph today. However, they realized that the conflict was simply starting and they would be prepared for whatever came straight away, regardless of the expense. The Void Trackers dread, shivered, and moaned under the constant surge of the HFY's weapons. Blasts bloomed across its frame, tearing expanding openings in the once impervious protection inside the boat. Cautions, blasts, and group individuals yelled in alarm as they mixed to contain the harm on the scaffold. Zorks grasped the arms of his order seat and his eyes, blasting with wrath as he looked at his boat. The pride of the Void Trackers armada was gradually destroyed by the people, fiendish weapons, and harm report. He woofed his voice, slicing through the bedlam like a blade. Body breaks at hand, 72 and 15. Sir, one of the team members answered his voice, shaking with dread. Safeguards are down to 15%, and we've lost capacity for the principal motors. Zorks threw his clenched hand down on the armrest. His jaw held tight. That's what he knew. If he didn't move quickly, his boat would be just a drifting wreck. Right away, start making crisis fixes. He requested, his voice blasting across the scaffold, redirecting all suitable capable capacity to the safeguards and weapon frameworks. The team mixed to submit to their fingers flying over the control boards as they worked to keep the boat alive. Zorks watched the screen, his psyche hustling as he attempted to find an exit from this wreck, and afterward it hit him. The people had figured out how to infiltrate his safeguards, yet he may as yet reverse the situation for them. He simply had to delay, rudder, and actuate the shrouding gadget. He directed a mischievous smile across his face. We should perceive how the people like battling a foe. They can't see the group member in charge. They gestured and punched in the order. The boat sparkled and evaporated from view, turning out to be just a spooky layout against the stars, yet Zorks wasn't done. At this point, he went to his main specialist, a spindly, multi-equipped animal with a standing for brightness. I believe that you should change the shrouding gadget, he said, his voice low and pressing, to make a power field around the boat, one that would ingest the people's weapons and shield us from their assaults. The designer's eyes broadened in shock. However, he gestured anxiously. Indeed, sir, I'll get right on it. As the designer rushed away, Zorks reclined in his seat, a feeling of troubling fulfillment washing over him. The people thought they had him beaten, yet they were off base. He would show them the genuine force of the Void Trackers, and he would make them pay for their discourteousness. Minutes ticked by as the specialist worked hotly to adjust the shrouding gadget. Zorks watched, his eyes restricted as he concentrated on the places of the humans and board ships. At long last, the designer's voice popped over the radio. The power field is prepared, sir. It's controlled by the dull energy reactor and ought to have the option to endure anything the people toss at us. Zork smiled, a savage light moving in his eyes, brilliantly enacting the power field, and planned to send off a counterattack. The boat shivered as the power field fit properly, a sparkling boundary of energy that wrapped the whole dreadnought on the view screen. The human and committee ships appeared to delay, as though detecting the unexpected change yet to be determined of force. Zorks was inclined forward in his seat, his fingers floating over the weapons controls. Focus on the closest human boat and fire freely. He growled, his voice trickling with perniciousness as the dreadnought weapon frameworks murmured to life. Dim energy sing through the boat's veins, similar to blood. Orcs watched with fulfillment as the principal volley of shots banged into the human boat's safeguards, making them flare and flash under the attack. The human boat returned discharge, yet its weapons bobbed innocuously off the dreadnought force field. Zorks giggled, an unforgiving grinding sound that reverberated through the extension. Everything you can manage, people, he insulted, his voice blasting over the communication framework. You might have your valuable water X, yet it's no counterpart for the force of the void trackers, as the fight seated on Zorg's certainty just developed with the power field set up. His boat was everything except strong, and he realized that it was inevitable before the people and their board partners were squashed underneath his heel. He would make them all compensation for their disobedience, and he would show the cosmic system the genuine importance of dread, for he was the Zorak commandant of the Void Trackers, and he would persevere relentlessly to accomplish his objectives. The dreadnought pushed forward its weapons, blasting with the fierceness of 1,000 suns. The human and committee ships fell back before its assault. Their developments dispersed like leaves in the breeze. Zorks watched everything with a savage smile, his eyes shining with the commitment of triumph. The world would before long figure out how to fear the name of the Void Trackers, and he would be the one to instruct them on that illustration. In turn, President Elena Martinez sat at her work area in the Oval Office, her forehead wrinkled as she read the message on her screen. It was from the Cosmic Board, exactly the same association that had quite recently sent off an all-out intrusion of Earth, yet presently they were offering a détente. Martinez reclined in her seat, her brain dashing. The committee had at last understood the mind-blowing capability of Water X, the baffling isotope that had allowed the people a battling opportunity against their trend-setting innovation, and presently they needed to combine efforts to concentrate on it further. The president tapped her fingers on the work area, gauging her choices. On the one hand, the gathering had won over being conniving and threatening. They had gone after the Earth without incitement and offered no grace in their attack. Might she, at some point, truly trust them to stay faithful to their promises, whatever they may be? Then again, the détente could be a method for finishing the conflict and shielding the Earth from additional obliteration. On the off chance that the people in the gathering could cooperate to outfit the force of a Quacks, it could help all species. The system and the commitment of being perceived as equivalents were enticing, so Martinez moaned and scoured her sanctuaries. She understood what she needed to do, and regardless of whether it wasn't simple, she went after her communicator and composed a message to General RHS Marcus. I want you to gather a list of our researchers and representatives. The Chamber has offered a ceasefire, and I've chosen to acknowledge that we will meet with their delegates on an impartial space station to examine a joint mission to study a Quacks. There was a respite, and afterward, RH's voice snapped over the communicator. Is it true or not that you are certain about this, Lady President? The committee can't be relied upon. I know, Martinez answered, yet we need to take this risk. In the event that we can figure out how to cooperate, it could make a huge difference, and assuming they double-cross us, we'll be prepared. She entered the call and stood up, fixing her suit coat. The time had come to confront the chamber and check whether harmony was genuinely conceivable. A couple of hours after the fact, a little human designation boarded a bus and set out for the nonpartisan space station. Among them were Dr. Simpson and her group, who had been working indefatigably to uncover the mysteries of a Quacks. They were joined by a gathering of experienced representatives who might be liable for arranging the details of the détente. As the bus moved toward the space station, the people couldn't resist the opportunity to feel a sense of disquiet. The station was gigantic, effectively predominating their little art. It was an indication of exactly how cutting-edge the Chamber's innovation was and how much was in question. The van docked with the station, and the people landed. They were welcomed by a gathering of committee delegates who were driven by a tall, slim outsider with pale, blue skin and punctured yellow eyes. Welcome, the outsider said. Its voice is smooth and melodic. I am the representative Zacher of the Cosmic Gathering. We are satisfied that you have acknowledged our proposal, and Dr. Simpson ventured forward with her eyes. Restricted, let's skirt the merriments, diplomat. We're here to talk about the conditions of the joint mission to concentrate on water. What precisely do you propose? Zoe grinned its slender lips, bended Sing vertically. Obviously, specialist. We propose a full organization among our species. Your researchers will work closely with us to concentrate on the properties of Orcs and foster new advances in light of its exceptional capacities in return. We will pull out our powers from Earth and award you full acknowledgement as equivalents in the cosmic local area, so the human representatives traded looks and their demeanors watched. It was an enticing proposition, yet they realized they must be careful. Furthermore, what affirmations do we have that you will stay true to your promises and commitments? One of the negotiators asked if your activities up to this point have not precisely enlivened trust. Zerk's grin blurred, and it fixed the representative with a virus gaze. I figure out your interests, however, I guarantee you. We want further struggle. The disclosure of water has made a huge difference. We currently see the potential for another time of participation and progress, one that will help all species in the world. The people were quiet briefly, taking into account the minister's words. At long last, Dr. Sensen shouted out. We acknowledge your proposition, envoy, however, we know this. In the event that you double-cross us, assuming you backpedal on your promise, we won't hold back from retaliating with all that we have. We might be new to the cosmic stage, yet we are not to be undervalued. Zaka gestured its appearance, serious, and figured out specialist. You have my assertion that we will respect our understanding now. Allow us to start our work together. The eventual fate of the cosmic system relies upon it. The two gatherings shook hands, fixing reality. It was a memorable second, one that would be associated with ages to come. The people in the gathering, when harsh foes, were currently accomplices in the mission to open the mysteries of water and usher in another time of harmony and success, yet even as they commended their freshly discovered collusion, they realized that the street ahead was not simple. The void trackers were still out there, and they would persevere relentlessly to keep the people and the board from accomplishing their objectives. The representatives sank into their quarters on the space station, getting ready for the long and troublesome excursion ahead. They realized that they will confront many difficulties and impediments, yet they are not entirely settled on succeeding. The destiny of the system was in their grasp, and they wouldn't neglect it as Dr. Sensen unloaded her effects in her little, simple room. She really wanted to feel a sense of fervor and fear. She had committed her life to the investigation of water and its one-of-a-kind properties, and presently she has the opportunity to work with probably the most developed personalities in the cosmic system to unlock its actual potential. She took out a little precious stone vial from her pack. Holding it up to the light inside was an example of a quax, the secretive isotope that had begun everything. She realized that this small vial held the way to everything and was not set in stone to disentangle its mysteries. Dr. Sensen put the vial down directly in front of her and plumped down her brain, previously hustling with thoughts and hypotheses. She had an inclination that the next few days would be probably the most thrilling and testing of her life, and she was prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. The human assignment rushed through the hallways of the Earth Protection Force Central Command, their strides reverberating off the metal walls. Diplomat Sasha Petro drove the gathering, his jaw set earnestly. They were going to leave on a basic mission to the nonpartisan space station, where they would meet with delegates of the Cosmic Board to examine a détente and a joint work to concentrate on water. As they moved toward the Holder Cove, a youthful official approached Petro, his face carved with stress as a diplomat. We've gotten a critical message from the general public. You really want to see this? Petro took the information cushion from the official and read the message, his eyes enlarging with each word. The Void Tracker Dreadnought had sent off an unexpected assault on the HFY powers, utilizing its cutting-edge innovation to overwhelm everything in its vicinity. The power field encompassing the Dreadnought disregarded the Water X weapons like they were nothing, while its dull energy radiates tore through a large number of boats, departing just flotsam and jetsam, and broke frames afterward. General RS is asking us to cut short the mission and return to Earth promptly. Pet expressed, gazing toward his group. He accepts that what is going on is too hazardous to even think about continuing with the Harmony talks. Due Sensen ventured forward, her forehead wrinkled. However, Envoy, this ceasefire could be our most obvious opportunity to end the conflict and shine a spotlight on the privileged insights of Water X. We can't neglect this open door. Petro gestured his demeanor, unflinchingly concurring. Specialist, we've made significant progress to turn around now. The board's proposition is verifiable, and I accept that cooperating is the way to halting the void trackers and getting a superior future for us all. He went to the remainder of the designation. I won't compel any of you to accompany me, however, I accept that this mission is excessively critical to forsake who's with me individually. The representatives gestured their understanding, their appearances set earnestly. They knew the dangers, however, they likewise realized that the destiny of the Earth and the cosmic system remained in a critical state. Then, how about we go? Petro said, driving the way into the storage sound, that as the appointment boarded their boat and was ready to send off, he couldn't shake the sensation of disquiet that glowed in his stomach. He realized that overall, RHS was not one to misrepresent. The risk and the insight about the Void Tracker's assault weighed vigorously at the forefront of his thoughts, yet he likewise knew that the best way to end this war was to figure out how to cooperate with different races of the universe. The Cosmic Gathering's proposal of a détente and a joint mission to concentrate on water was an opportunity to do precisely that, and still up in the air to see it through, the boat took off from the overhang, cove, and shot very high. Its motors were thundering as it climbed increasingly high. I sat in the cockpit, watching the stars streak by outside the viewport. Out of nowhere, the boat shivered fiercely, and caution started to boom all through the lodge. Petrov grasped the armrests of his seat as the boat swayed aside, scarcely staying away from an explosion of laser discharge that shot past the viewport. "What's going on?" he yelled over the commotion. The pilot, a talented veteran named Marcus, gritted his teeth as he battled to monitor the boat. "We're enduring an onslaught of diplomats, a gathering of obscure contenders coming in quick and hard." Petro watched with dismay as the warriors amassed around the boat, their smooth, dark structures gleaming in the starlight. They were little and dexterous, shooting all through the scope of the boat's guards. With mind-blowing rate and accuracy, Marcus reviled as one more eruption of laser fire shook the boat, cautioning lights blazing on the control board. "There are too many quick diplomats, I can't shake them, Petros." Mind hustled as he attempted to figure out the circumstances, who were these aggressors, and for what reason were they focusing on the designation, and afterward, it hit him that the void trackers it had must be them. They were the only ones with the innovation and the thought process to send off such a bald-faced assault. Petro's heart sank as he understood reality. The Harmony talks had been a snare up and down, and the Cosmic Committee had never expected to work with the people. They simply needed to draw them from Earth to leave them powerless against assault. He pummeled his clenched hand against the armrest in dissatisfaction. How is it that he could have been so guileless? He had driven his group into potential harm, and presently they were addressing the cost. The boat shivered again as another contender scored an immediate hit, booming significantly stronger. Presently, smoke started to fill the lodge as the harm mounted. The harsh odor of consuming plastic and metal fills Petro's noses. He glanced around at his group, their overcomes scratched with dread and assurance. Dr. Sensen grasped her examination notes to her chest, her knuckles white with pressure. Different agents prepared themselves against the walls, their eyes wide with shock and doubt. Petro realized he needed to follow through with something. He was unable to let his group down. Currently, he unfastened his seatbelt and stumbled to the rear of the boat, battling against the disturbance and the smoke he found. What he was searching for was in a little stockpiling compartment, a rack of Aquac's mixed weapons, the very ones that had demonstrated so much power against the Void Tracker's dreadnought. He got a rifle and a small bunch of projectiles, his hands shaking as he stacked the weapon. "Might you at any point get us near one of those contenders?" he yelled over the radio. "Might it be said that you are insane, Minister?" Marcus hollered back. "We'll be destroyed. Get it done?" Petro requested his voice, breaking with distress. Marcus reviled once more. However, he did, as he was told, bank the boat hard to one side and jump towards the closest contender. Petrov prepared himself against the wall. His rifle was good to go as the contender came into range. Petrov focused and shot the Aquaxagests, streaking through the void. As minuscule comets, the warrior safeguards erupted and started as the rounds affected. However, they held firm. Petrov gritted his teeth and discharged again, pouring all his displeasure and disappointment into the trigger. This time, the safeguards broke and the rounds tore through the contender's hlee, similar to tissue paper. The contender detonated in a splendid glimmer of light garbage, turning away into the murkiness. Petrov let out a victorious holler, his heart beating in his chest, yet his triumph was brief. The excess warriors refocused and came at the appointment transport from all sides. Their weapons blasting, Marcus attempted frantically to avoid their shoot. However, there was no utilization of the boat. They kicked and shivered as the contenders beat it with laser alarm yelling and ignites flying from each control center. Petrov could feel the deck plates shaking underneath his feet and could hear the moaning of metal as the boat fell to pieces. He glanced around at his group and saw the apprehension and franticness in their eyes. They had made significant progress and had contended energetically. Just to be deceived and left for dead, yet Petrov would not surrender. He wouldn't allow the void trackers to dislike this. He snatched the radio and took a full breath. His voice was consistent and quiet. As he addressed consideration for all agents, we are enduring an onslaught by the void trackers. The Harmony talks were a snare, and the cosmic chamber has sold out us, yet we won't go down easily snatched. Anything weapons you can and plan to repulse borders. We might be outgunned and dwarfed, however, we have something they don't have, the strength and assurance of the human soul. We won't allow them to take our boat, and we won't allow them to end our lives. Stand with me now and let us show these mongrels what happens when you play with Earth. A cheer went up from the representatives as they mixed to arm themselves. Their trepidation was supplanted by an inauspicious assurance. They realized the chances were against them. However, they additionally realized that they had no real option except to battle. Petrov had his spot at the front of the gathering, his rifle good to go. He could hear the hints of the void tracker ships mooring with their own and the crash of metal on metal as the isolated space cycled open. He took a full breath and steadied his point. His finger drifted over the trigger of the void. Trackers had committed a grave error in misjudging the people, and presently they would follow through on the cost. The isolated space entryways burst open, and the void trackers filled the boat. Their weapons blasting, Petrov and his group met them. Heat-in, water rounds, and laser fire consumed the space as the different sides conflicted in a frantic fight for endurance. It was a battle that would be associated with ages to come. A battle that would determine the destiny of the designation as well as of the whole world, and as Petrov drove his group into the fray, that's what he realized. Regardless, they could fight constantly for common decency. The boat shook and shivered as the fight seethed on the sound of gunfire and blasts reverberating through the hallways. Petrov and his group battled with all that they had, bringing down the void tracker. After void tracker with their Aquax weapons, however, the foe continued to come. Their numbers, apparently perpetual. Petrov could feel his solidarity. He began to feel the weariness setting in as he fired a large number of rounds into the propelling crowd. Out of nowhere, an enormous blast shook the boat, sending Petrov and his group tumbling to the deck. Cautions boomed and smoke consumed the space as the boat recorded vigorously aside, its motors biting the dust. Petrov battled to his feet and his head, twirling from the effect. He glanced around and saw that a large number of his group were injured or more terrible. Their bodies flung across the deck like broken dolls, yet there was no opportunity to grieve. The void trackers were all the while coming. Their weapons actually blasting. Petrov gritted his teeth and raised him, not set in stone to battle to the last, and afterward, right when everything appeared to be lost, a wonder occurred. A huge EDF war vessel exited Twist, its firearms previously terminating as it overwhelmed the void, tracking ships. The aggressors dissipated like flies, their boats detonating into fireballs as the Ep's weapons found their imprint. Petro let out a cheer as he saw the natural markings on the warship's structure. It was the Aegis, the most remarkable boat in the HFY Armada, and at its rudder was, as a matter of fact, General RHS himself. The Aegis cleared in like an avenging holy messenger, its firearms tearing through the void tracker ships like they were made of paper. The appointment transport shivered and moaned as the Aegis locked on with its transportation forces, pulling it to somewhere safe and secure. Petro fell against the wall. His rifle rattling to the deck, he was depleted, battered, and wounded. However, he was alive, as were his group. He gazed upward as Broad R.H. strode onto the scaffold, his face carved with concern. "Minister Petro, are all of you right?" Petro gestured his voice. Horror from yelling, "We're alive, General, thanks to you." RHS shook his head. "Don't say thanks to me." The minister thanked the people of the EDF and the researcher who fostered the Water X weapons. Without them, we would have been lost. Petro glanced around at his group and at the daring people who had battled next to him. They were all legends, all of them, yet the battle was nowhere near finished. The void trackers were still out there, and the cosmic gatherings double-crossing had just extended the divisions between the races of the world. Petro realized that the street ahead would be long and hard and that there would be a lot more fights to come, yet he also realized that the people could never surrender and that they would continue to battle for what was correct, regardless of the expense, with the force of Aquax next to them and the strength of their partners in the EF. Petro realizes that they could confront anything and that difficulties lay ahead. They would battle for their planet, for their kin, and for the eventual fate of the actual world. The designation transport docked with the Aegis, and Petro and his group raced to the clinic for therapy as he lay on the clinical bed. His injuries being kept an eye on by the boat's primary care physicians, Petro couldn't resist the opportunity to feel the deep satisfaction and assurance they had encountered. The most terrible thing that the cosmic system brought to the table was that they had dominated the competition. They had demonstrated that the people were an amazing powerhouse, that they could never withdraw notwithstanding oppression and mistreatment, and, as he floated off to rest, Petro realized that this was just the start. The conflict was not even close to finished, and there would be a lot more fights to come. Yet with the strength of the human soul and the force of water next to them, he realized that they could confront any challenge that lay ahead. For they were the safeguards of Earth, the watchmen of the world, and they could never at any point surrender. The designation, transport, shivered and moaned as the void tracker warriors beat it with laser fire. Advance notice lights glimmered and cautions boomed. As the boat frameworks fizzled, individually Envoy Petro grasped the armrests of her seat, her knuckles white with strain. Harm report. She woofed safeguards down to 20%, and the pilot answered his voice. Tight with stress motors are disconnected, we're down and out. Petro reviled. Faintly, she had driven her group into a snare, and presently they were following through on the cost. However, she wasn't prepared to surrender at this time. What might be said about weapons? She asked the strategic official and shook her head. All weapon frameworks are disconnected, we're vulnerable, and Petro's mind hustled as she attempted to consider an exit from this wreck, and afterward it hit her: the Model Water X bomb. She had been advised on the weapon before the mission, yet had trusted never to need to utilize it. It was a final hotel, a Judgment Day gadget equipped for obliterating a whole armada, yet when all else fails, compromise is unavoidable. Arm the Water X bomb. She requested the strategic official's eyes, enlarged in shock. Yet, Mom, that is a model. We couldn't say whether it would work, we must choose between limited options. Petro said to solidly arm the bomb and get ready to explode on my order. The official delayed the slightest bit, then, at that point, gestured and started entering orders into his control center. Petro went to the interchange official to make an impression on the void. Trackers let them know that we have a weapon equipped for obliterating their whole armada and that we won't hold back from utilizing it in the event that they don't remain down right away. The official gestured and started communicating the directive briefly. There was quiet on the scaffold, broken simply by the cautions and the far-off thunder of blasts, and afterward, out of nowhere, the boat started to shake fiercely about what's going on. Petro requested the pilot's eyes be extended with dismay as he gazed at his control center. It's a wormhole, ma'am, gigantic one right off our bow. Pet felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard bits of gossip about the Void Tracker's capacity to make wormholes, yet she had never seen one face to face. It was said that they involved the wormholes to travel immense distances in a matter of seconds and to discard their foes without a full converse. She requested that we move away from that thing, yet it was past the point of no return. The wormhole was at that point pulling them in its gravitational power excessively, areas of strength for excessively opposing the boat moaned and covered as it was hauled increasingly close to the whirling vortex of energy. Petro realized that they had just one opportunity. She went to the strategic official and exploded the bomb. She said unobtrusively that the official's hand drifted over the button, delaying the slightest bit, and then, with a last gesture, he squeezed it. There was a blinding glimmer of light, and afterward, the boat was overwhelmed by an enormous blast. The X-bomb exploded with a power not at all like anything Petro had at any point seen, tearing through the texture of reality itself. Briefly, everything went white. Petro felt herself being tossed from her seat, her body tumbling through the air like a cloth doll, and afterward, similarly, out of nowhere as it had started. It was over, and Petro squinted, attempting to clean the spots off of her vision. She was lying on the floor of the extension, encompassed by flotsam and jetsam and igniting wires. The boat was gone, destroyed by the power of the blast, as were the Void Tracker contenders. However, the wormhole was still there, approaching over them like a ravenous hunter. Petro realized that they had just gotten themselves a couple of seconds of relief. With a moan, she pulled herself to her feet and stumbled over to the interchange console. It was harmed yet at the same time practical. She needed to make an impression on Earth to caution them of the Void Tracker's bad form and urge them to proceed with the battle. This is Envoy Sasha Petro of the Earth designation. She started, her voice shaking with depletion and torment. We have been sold out by the Cosmic Committee and gone after by the Void Trackers. Our boat has been obliterated, and we are being maneuvered into a wormhole. We don't have the foggiest idea where it will take us or, on the other hand, in the event that we will make do, however, we have struck a blow against the Void Trackers, and we won't surrender. Earth should proceed with the battle, regardless of the expense. The Void Trackers must be halted, or all will be lost petrochemically with a last explosion of static. The message was sent. Petro fell once more into her seat, her solidarity at last giving out. She looked as the wormhole lingered increasingly close, its twirling energy creating shocking shaded areas across the destroyed scaffold, and afterward, with a last shiver, the boat vanished into the vortex, evaporating into the obscure profundities of reality. The blast from the Aquax bomb tore through the texture of existence, sending shock waves resonating across the universe. The actual groundworks of reality shuddered as the wormhole that had consumed Diplomat Petro's boat started to undermine its edges, flashing and beating with other common energy. Like an insatiable monster, the peculiarity began to extend its gravitational pull, developing further with each passing second. In her lab on Earth, Dr. Simpson gazed at the readouts from her instruments, her forehead wrinkled in concern as the information spilling across the screens laid out a frightening picture. The wormhole was extending, however, its development was speeding up dramatically. Going on like this, it would before long take steps to consume everything in its way, including the Earth itself. This is not normal for anything we've at any point seen. Dr. Simpson said, her voice was tight with strain. The energy readings are out of this world, and on the off chance that we don't figure out how to stop this thing, it could destroy the actual texture of our universe. Her group worked madly to investigate the information, frantically looking for any hints that could end up being useful to them in comprehending the idea of the abnormality as they dug further. A chilling acknowledgement started to occur to them. The wormhole was not only a basic tire in spacetime, it was a passage to another aspect. I've run the recreations multiple times, and the outcomes are consistently the equivalent, said Dr. Mikvalov, one of Sorensen's top specialists. In the event that wormhole keeps on growing, it could open a gateway to a domain outside our ability to grasp, and assuming the occupants of that domain were to spill into our universe, he followed off unfit to give voice to the sickening prospects that dashed through his brain. The whole world. Maybe even the whole universe could be in danger of obliteration. President Martinez walked forward and backward in her office, her psyche faltering from the most recent turns of events. The circumstances were spiraling crazy, and she felt the heaviness of the world pushing down on her shoulders. She had consistently valued her capacity to settle on difficult choices notwithstanding misfortune. However, presently she ended up incapacitated by hesitation. An unexpected ring from her communicator shocked her out of her viewpoints with a feeling of fear. She enacted the gadget and ended up eye to eye with the holographic picture of an individual from the Cosmic Committee, President Martinez. The outsider said, its voice was dribbling with loftiness, "I trust. You have been made mindful of the circumstances unfolding in the Zeta Quadrant." Martinez gestured her jaw, gripping tight. "I have, and I expect you have a proposition for how to think about it." The outsider's highlights curled into a bizarre estimation of a grin. "To be sure, we do. The Chamber has been dealing with a mystery project, a gadget equipped for controlling the actual texture of reality with it. We could close the wormhole and forestall the annihilation of the world." Martinez's eyes restricted in doubt. "And what's the trick, the catch, as you so articulately put it?" "That's what it is. In return for our help, humanity should consent to giving up all a quack's innovation and submit to board rule. Your species has demonstrated how it can be unreasonably erratic and hazardous to be permitted to proceed unrestrained." Martinez felt a flood of outrage ascending in her chest. The board had been attempting to subvert mankind's situation in the system for a really long time, and presently they were involving this emergency as a potential chance to hold on to control unequivocally. "I should talk about this with my counselors," she expressed, battling to keep her voice level. "The destiny of the whole world is in question, and I can't settle on such a choice daintily." The outsider's eyes sparkled with perniciousness. "Obviously, Lady President, yet don't take excessively lengthy. The wormhole becomes bigger continuously, and there's just no time left. The board's proposition won't stay on the table endlessly." With that, the 3D image glinted and disappeared. Leaving Martinez alone with her viewpoints, she knew that giving up to the gathering's requests would be a treachery of all that she had battled for, selling out of the courageous people who had forfeited their lives to guard Earth's opportunity. But, assuming that the option was the obliteration of the whole universe, Martinez sank into her seat, her head in her grasp. The heaviness of the choice before her was a lot to handle. She had consistently accepted that mankind's predetermination was to assume its legitimate position among the stars, to fashion its own way, liberated from the obstruction of different species. However, presently, with the destiny of the system in limbo, she wound up addressing all that she had at any point had confidence in. Minister Petro flickered, attempting to clean the spots off of her vision. She wound up drifting in a domain that resisted all laws of material science and reason. Whirling colors moved around her, transforming into outsider shapes. That her psyche attempted to grasp it resembled being caught inside a kaleidoscope that had been planned by a crazy person. "What in blazes is this spot?" she murmured, her voice sounding oddly stifled in the odd climate. "Minister, look at one of her groups," individuals yelled, pointing off into the distance. Petro squinted, attempting to make out how the situation was playing out. Right away, she thought it was simply one more twirl of variety, yet as it moved nearer, she understood that it was something totally different. It was a gathering of creatures. She disliked any creatures she had at any point seen. They had all the earmarks of being made of unadulterated energy, and with no actual structure whatsoever. They beat and gleamed, with another common light moving and changing shape as they drew nearer. "What are they?" Petro murmured, her heart hustling with a combination of dread and wonderment, as though, in light of her inquiry, the creatures started to speak with the people clairvoyantly. Their voices reverberated inside Petro's mind, communicating in a language that she had never heard. However, some way or another she saw impeccably. "We are the gatekeepers in this aspect," they said, their voices were reverberating with an old power. "Since the beginning of recorded history, we have looked after this domain, safeguarding it from the people who might try to obliterate it." Petro's brain reeled at the ramifications of their words. She had consistently realized that there were things in the universe that were beyond human ability to comprehend, yet this was something completely different that made the wormhole that brought us here. She asked, her voice shuddering marginally at the gatekeeper's light beat with a profound furious red. The wormhole was made by our old adversaries, the Void Masters. They said their voices were trickling with scorn. They are a race of pernicious substances that look to consume all life in the cosmic system. In the past, they have been detained in this aspect for ages, yet presently they try to break free. Petro felt a chill run down her spine. She had felt that the Void Trackers were the best danger that mankind had at any point confronted. However, presently, it appears that they were only pornographies in a much bigger game. How might we stop them? She asked, her voice loaded up sincerely. The gatekeeper's light moved to a delicate, beating blue. We can assist you with shutting the wormhole and routing the Void Rulers. They said, their voices loaded up with calm strength yet. In the first place, you should substantiate yourselves commendable by passing a progression of preliminaries. Really, at that time, will we award you the power you really want to save your world? Petro glanced around at her group, seeing the trepidation and vulnerability in their eyes. She realized that they were all thinking exactly the same thing. What decision did they have? They were abandoned in an outsider aspect, with no chance back home confronting a foe that took steps to obliterate all that they held dear. We acknowledge your demand. She said, her voice was ringing out with recently discovered strength. We will take the necessary steps to save our kin and our universe. The Watchman's light beats with a splendid, blinding white. Then let the preliminary tests start. They said, their voices reverberating through the bizarre and unnerving domain, and Petro took a full breath, taking herself for whatever lay ahead. She realized that the destiny of the whole world lay on their shoulders and was not set in stone to own it as far as possible. Regardless of the challenges they confronted and the penances they needed to make, they wouldn't fall flat. They couldn't bomb the fate of all that they held dear and relied upon. The Void Tracker ships tore through the human armada, similar to wolves tearing into a group of sheep. Their dull energy weapons cut through structure plating and safeguards as though they were made of paper. Warriors went crazy, following blazes and garbage. Capital boats recorded and consumed their team, shouting in fear over the communications on the extension of the HFY General, RHS, grasping the edge of the empty table. His knuckles white, the showcase showed an ocean of red, every symbol addressing a hostile boat. They were wherever a multitude of furious beetles, gobbling up everything in their way. Sir, we've lost contact with the Tigress and the Fearless. One of the officials detailed, her voice shaking the Void Trackers. They just destroyed them. RHS hammered his clenched hand on the table, making the symbols gleam. God damn it. What might be said about the Aquax adjustments? Is it true or not that they are making any difference? The official shook her head insignificantly. Sir, their power fields are major areas of strength for excessively. We should toss rocks at them. RHS shut his eyes briefly, his brain dashing. This couldn't occur. They had been so near a triumph, so near finishing this war unequivocally. Be that as it may, presently, it seems as though the end would be theirs. No, he wouldn't allow that to occur. He couldn't. There must be a way. His eyes snapped open. The power fields, that is the key. We bring those down and the Aquax will destroy them. Yet, sir, another official dissented, we've hit those power fields with everything. We know they're impotent capable. RHS shook his head, not from the outside there, but rather from within. He went to the official to raise the schematics of the Void Trackers. I need to see everything about it. The official consented, and a holographic picture of the monstrous boat showed up over the table. Rad concentrated on it eagerly with his eyes, shooting over each bend and pointing there. He said, at long last, highlighting a little hub close to the focal point of the boat. That is the power field generator. In the event that we can get a group inside and harm it, we could get an opportunity. The officials traded apprehensive looks. Sir, that is self-destruction. One of them said, the dreadnought is vigorously watched. Any group we send in will be butchered. RHS went to confront them with his eyes. I'll lead the group myself. There was a snapshot of paralyzed quietness. Then, at that point, the fight started. Sir, you can't. It's excessively dangerous. RHS held up a hand, hushing them. This is our main opportunity. We fizzle, and the Earth falls. I won't allow that to happen in your life. He went to the comms official. Get me, Lieutenant Chen, and Chief Tanaka. Advise them to meet me in the Holder Narrows quickly and have Dr. Sensen send north of one of those Water X bombs. We will require it. The comms official gestured and started handing off the order. RHS turned around to the empty table, his eyes fixed on the dreadnought. He realized the chances were against them. He realizes that a considerable number of his troopers would bite the dust today, yet in the event that it implied saving the Earth, assuming it implied finishing this conflict, everything will work out. 5 minutes after the fact that Rad remained in the Holder Sound, a group of his best fighters gathered before him. Lieutenant Chen and Chief Tanaka were there alongside 12 others. They were undeniably equipped with tons of weaponry, and their appearances were still up in the air. All of you know the arrangement, RH said, his voice ringing out over the murmur of the boat's motors. We invade the Dread, advance toward the power field generator, and blow it to damnation. Then we explode the Aquarex bomb and get the damnation out of there. It will not be simple, and a few of us may not return. However, this is our main goal. Going for Earth, the fighters repeated, their voices loaded up with wild assurance. They boarded the Outsource, a smooth dark art intended for secrecy inclusions, as it took off from the storage, sound, and streaked towards the Dreadnought. RHS felt a feeling of quiet wash over him. This was all there was to the critical point in time somehow. This war would end. Today. The Outsource drew closer to the Dread, its shrouding gadget, delivering it imperceptible to sensors as it fell through the hostile boat's safeguards, similar to a phantom undetected and inconspicuous as it approached the frame. The pilot's voice snapped over the comms. 30 seconds to addition, planned to break. The officers prepared their weapons, their appearances tense with expectation. RHS felt his heart beating in his chest, yet his hands were consistent on his rifle. The Outsource shivered as it locked onto the Fear Nort's body, its slicing lasers cutting through the thick protective layer like a hot blade. Through margarine, there was a murmur of getting away from air as the brake was fixed, and afterward, the seal was open. Go, go, RHS yelled, jumping out of the Outsource and onto the faux deck. His warriors followed not far behind, spreading out to get to the region they were in at this point. The genuine battle started. They moved rapidly through the halls of the Dreadnought, their strides reverberating on the metal deck plates. The boat was a labyrinth of winding ways and enormous chambers, all beating with the wiped-out green shine of dim energy. They experienced opposition very quickly. Tracker fighters, whose reinforcements were as dark as the void of the room, spilled out of side entries and entryways with their weapons, spitting electrical discharge energy, and his group retaliated with horrid assurance. Their water rounds, tearing through the foe's shield like tissue paper, yet for each void tracker they killed, 2 more appeared to have their spot. They were an interminable tide. A constant power of obliteration looked as his troopers fell individually. Their bodies, destroyed by the foe's weapons. Lieutenant Chen took an electrical jolt to the chest. The power of the impact of tossing her options is somewhat limited. She drooped to the ground, her eyes coated and dead. Skipper Tanaka fell straight away. His body was filled with openings. RHS gritted his teeth and battled on his rifle, blasting. They were close and are currently so close. He could see the power field generator up ahead, a beating mass of energy in CIRR. However, the void trackers were shedding in their numbers. Overpowering, RHS realized they wouldn't make it, not every one of them. He went to the leftover warriors, his eyes hard, and got to the generator, blowing it regardless. I'll hold them off. The warriors wavered, their countenances torn, yet RHS didn't give them a decision. He pushed the Aquax bomb under the control of the closest trooper and pushed him towards the generator. He yelled, "That is a request." The fighters gestured and ran towards the generator, their weapons bursting, and went to confront the approaching swarm of voids. He tracks, his rifle raised. He battled like a man had all his shots, tracking down its imprint. He brought down many of the foes, their bodies stacking up around him, yet it wasn't sufficient. An electrical jolt of energy got him in the shoulder, twirling him around, and one more tore through his leg, sending him to his knees. He admired seeing a void tracker approaching him. Its weapon pointed at his head. RHS shut his eyes, sitting tight for the end. However, it didn't come. There was a stunning blast, and the deck shivered underneath him. He woke him up to see the power field generator detonating in a splendid blaze of light. The energy field around the Dren flashing and passing on his fighters had gotten it done. They had forfeited themselves to allow the Earth an opportunity. RHS grinned. Even as he felt his life ebbing ceaselessly, he went after the detonator on his belt, his fingers shutting around the trigger for Earth. He murmured, and afterward he squeezed the button. The Aquax bomb exploded with a power that shook the actual texture of the room. The Dren disappeared in a blinding blaze of light, its iotas destroyed by the force of the impact. The shock wave undulated outwards, breaking the void, tracker ships like glass, and afterward it was finished. The fight was won, yet at a horrible expense. RHS and his officers had given their lives to save Earth, to allow mankind an opportunity. Their penance could never be neglected. Representative Petro and her team ventured forward, prepared to confront anything that the energy creatures had available. The main preliminary started without advance notice as the twirling shades of the domain mixed into clear, unnerving scenes from each group's past lengthy covered, recollections and injuries were hauled to the surface, constraining them to go up against their most profound apprehensions and second thoughts. Enan Mikio ended up back on the province transport, where he grew up, remembering the second time a body break killed his folks. He observed them defenselessly as they were sucked out into the virus vacuum of the room. Lieutenant Ivanova had to observe the obliteration of her home world by a rebel space rock. Feeling the agony of billions of lives snuffed out in a moment, Petro herself was not saved from the profound attack. She saw herself as a youthful official frozen with uncertainty at a crucial point in the fight. Her dithering cost the existence of her whole crew, a disappointment that had tormented her for quite a long time. As the dreams increased, some group individuals started to break under the strain. Dr. Sof, the boat surgeon, twisted into a ball and sobbed wildly, mumbling incongruously about the persistence he had lost throughout the long term. Volov attacked the energy creatures, shouting resistance, even as his brain cracked under the heaviness of his own responsibility and self-hatred. Others essentially disappeared, their bodies and brains consumed by the outsider energies that saturated the domain. 1 second they were there, and the following they were gone, leaving just reverberates of their last struggled shouts through it all. Petro and a center gathering of her officials figured out how to clutch their mental soundness and feeling of direction. They rested on one another for help, sympathizing with their aggravation and their solidarity in equal measure. Petro energized them with a stirring discourse, helping them to remember their obligation to Earth and the world at large. "We are the last line of protection," she said. Her voice was ringing out across the dreamlike scene. "We can't vacillate. We can't flop an excess of her lies upon us as though, because of her words, the dream started to change. The team wound up standing up to their apprehensions heeding, overcoming the apparitions of their pasts with recently discovered mental fortitude and assurance. Enan Michailov contacted his folks, letting them know he adored them and promising to carry on their inheritance. Lieutenant Ivanova stood tall in the midst of the remnants of her home world, promising to modify and re-establish what had been lost. Petro dealt with the phantoms of her fallen crew, requesting their pardon and vowing to respect their penance. Individually, the group individuals conquered their preliminaries, arising more grounded and more joined than any other time in recent memory. As the last dreams disappeared, the energy creatures returned before them. They emanated a feeling of endorsement and regard, recognizing the human strength and versatility you have substantiated yourselves as commendable. They said their vows, repeating, through the personalities of the team. "You have confronted your haziest apprehensions and become more grounded in them. You are prepared to confront the difficulties that lie ahead." The creatures introduced Petro with a gleaming precious stone and an inward light that appeared to contain the actual substance of the domain. This antique holds the ability to seal the wormhole and expel the Void Masters back to their dim jail. They made sense of it, However, it must be employed by the individuals who have passed our preliminary tests and demonstrated their value. Petro took the precious stone respectfully, feeling its power droning through her veins. She realized that the destiny of the world presently rested in her grasp, and she was resolved not to allow it to get past her. "Much thanks to you," she told the energy creatures, bowing her head in appreciation. "We won't let you down. We will utilize this gift to save our kin and the wide range of various races in the universe." The creatures gestured, their structures starting to blur once more into the whirling shades of the domain. "Go now," they said, "and may the strength of your convictions guide you to triumph with a last explosion of light." The creatures evaporated, leaving Petro and her group alone in the outsider scene. They took a gander at one another, and their countenances solidified with resolve and reason. "We should return to our own existence," Petro said, grasping the gem firmly. "We have a wormhole to close and a universe to save." President Martinez walked forward and backward in the circumstance room, her temple wrinkled with the heaviness of the choice before her. The cosmic gathering's final proposal lingered palpably like a stifling cloud. Give up the Aquax innovation and submit to their standard or face the outcomes. She knew the results they discussed on a full scale: war, the annihilation of the Earth, and all that she held dear. She glanced around at the essences of her councils, every one carved with the very stress and vulnerability that she felt they had been bantering for quite a long time, gauging the upsides and downsides of each and every choice. Some contended that giving up the water was the best way to stay away from a horrendous conflict. Others demanded that surrendering their most impressive weapon would leave them exposed against the Void Trackers and the Void. Rulers Martinez pummeled her clenched hand on the table. "Damn it, there must be another way. We can't simply turn over and quit any pretense of all that we battled for. However, we likewise can't endanger billions in a conflict. We can't win." All of a sudden, a caution boomed through the room. "Madam President, we were distinguishing a monstrous energy flood close to Earth's circle." The voice of the head of staff snapped through the radio. Martinez's heart dashed as she went to the huge screen on the wall. An armada of obscure boats rose up out of hyperspace, their smooth silver structures glimmering against the dimness of the room. She prepared herself for an assault, but rather a message started to play: "Good tidings, individuals of Earth, we come in harmony." The voice was profound and melodic, practically entrancing. "We have been watching your battle from a remote place, and we have chosen to offer our help." Martins and her guides took a gander at one another in shock. Who were these newbies, and what was it that they needed? The voice proceeded. "We are the Nyx, an animal group from the past, your system. We have innovation. A long way past anything you have at any point seen innovation that could reverse the situation of your conflict against the Void Trackers and the Void Rulers." The screen moved to show pictures of the Scratch's boats and weapons. Martinez's jaw dropped as she saw the extraordinary power they had, energy safeguards that could endure the most grounded assault weapons that could disintegrate whole armadas in a solitary shot. "We will impart this innovation to you to assist you with shielding your reality and your kin. All we ask consequently is a coalition, an organization to battle the Void Trackers and the Void Masters together." Martinez's psyche hustled with the potential outcomes of the Nyx's innovation. They could at last overcome the odds against their adversaries. They could get Earth's future and safeguard their lifestyle. However, she additionally knew the dangers. Believing in new and obscure animal varieties was generally a bet. Imagine a scenario where they had ulterior thought processes. Consider the possibility that they deceived them eventually. She went to her counselors, every one sitting tight for her choice. She took a full breath and shut her eyes. "I really want time to ponder this and set up a safe channel with the Nyx. I need to talk with their chiefs straightforwardly, as the consultant mixed to complete her orders." Martinez plumped down vigorously in her seat. She realized she was going to go with the main choice of her life. The destiny of the Earth and the whole cosmic system remained in a critical state. She just trusted she was settling on the ideal decision. The gleaming gem beat with one more common energy as diplomat Petrov held it firmly, her knuckles white sincerely. The enduring individuals from her group clustered around her, their countenances carved with a blend of dread and resolve. They had to deal with some serious hardship in the outsider domain. Their brains and bodies drove them to the edge of breakdown, yet they had arisen more grounded, joined by a typical reason. Petro held the gem on high, its brilliant gleam creating spooky shaded areas on the walls of the boat. This is a vital aspect of fixing the wormhole and saving our universe, she said in her voice, consistently, regardless of the mayhem seething external. The energy creatures have depended on us with this assignment, and we won't bomb them. The group gestured seriously, their eyes fixed on the shining antique. They realized the stakes were higher than any time in recent memory. The destiny of Earth, yet the whole world lay on their shoulders. Petro took a full breath and started to recite the words. The energy creatures had shown her voice, rising and falling in an old outsider cadence. The gem beat accordingly, its light becoming more brilliant with each passing second. Abruptly, the boat reeled fiercely as it was trapped in the gravitational draw of the weekend. Wormhole cautioning cautions blast as the structure moaned under the strain, yet Petro stayed centered in her serenade, developing stronger and more obstinate. The precious stone erupted with a blinding power, and briefly everything went white. When the team's vision cleared, they ended up back in typical space. The wormhole falling behind them was a stunning showcase of light and variety. However, there was no opportunity to celebrate. They had arisen in a furious fight, the powers of Earth and its new partners secured in a frantic battle against the joined forces of the Void Trackers, and the cosmic board warriors moved and wound through the void, their weapons blazing in the haziness. Capital boats traded blasts their frames, clasping under the surge of rockets and energy radiates. The space around them was covered with the trash of broken ships and the frozen carcasses of unfortunate group individuals. Petro burned through no time in reaching President Martinez, her fingers flying over the communications board. Madam President. This is Minister Petro. We have gotten back from the outsider domain with a strong curio that hid the wormhole and kept the Void Masters from entering our universe. The energy creatures have pledged their help toward our goal. Martinez's face showed up on the view screen with a demeanor that was a blend of help and assurance. Envoy, your timing couldn't be better. We've figured out how to persuade our new partners to unite with us against the Void Trackers, yet the Cosmic Committee stays a trump card. They're actually requesting that we give up our quacks innovation and submit to their standard. Petro's eyes. Limited, Madam President. We can't stand to be separated at this crucial point in time. We should introduce a unified front against the Void Masters and their followers. I propose you issue a last final offer to the Gathering, pull out their powers, and permit us to deal with the Void Tracker danger or face the full force of our alliance. Martinez gestured drearily and concurred. It's time we showed the world what mankind is able to do. She went to address somebody off-screen, her voice firm and unfaltering, and sent the accompanying message to the Cosmic Committee. This is President Elena Martinez of Earth. We currently possess a strong relic that can seal the wormhole and keep the Void rulers from entering our universe. We likewise have the help of another partner in innovation. A long way past anything the Chamber has at any point seen. We request that you pull out your powers right away and permit us to deal with the Void Tracker danger. Inability to consent will bring about the full force of our alliance being brought to bear against you. You have 1 hour to answer. The transmission finished, and Petro went to her team. With a savage smile. You heard the President. We should get to work throughout the following hour. Petro and her group worked wildly to break down the precious stone relic and foster an arrangement to utilize it to seal the wormhole. They were joined by Dr. Sensen and her group, who had been working resolutely to unwind the mysteries of Water X and its true capacity as a weapon against the Void Trackers together. They pored over the information gushing in from the curio, attempting to translate its outsider engravings and open its secret power. It was a test of skill and endurance, with the destiny of the system yet to be determined. As the cutoff time drew closer, the Cosmic Board at long last answered President Martinez's final proposal in a message. They consented to pull out their powers and permit the people to deal with the Void Tracker danger. However, just relying on the prerequisite that they be permitted to notice and screen the activity, Martinez hesitantly concurred, realizing that she was unable to stand to completely estrange the gathering. She recently trusted that Petro and her group would have the option to seal the wormhole before the gathering could obstruct the transitory détente set up. The human powers and their partners refocused and were ready for the last push against the Void. Trackers Petro and her team had their spot at the vanguard of the armada. The gem Curio was shining with another common power as they moved toward the wormhole. The Void Trackers tossed all that they had at them, frantic to keep them from fixing the gateway and foiling their arrangements. The space around them was loaded up with the glimmers of weapons chutes and the shouts of biting the dust ships, yet Petro and her group stayed zeroed in on their main goal. The precious stone Antiquity was beating with expanding power as they moved nearer to the wormhole. Dr. Sensen and her group worked madly to align the relic's energy yield, attempting to find the exact recurrence that would seal the gateway unequivocally. Unexpectedly, in a gigantic void, the tracker dreadnought rose up out of the wormhole, its body seething with dim energy cannons. It ended with a blast of rockets at the human armada. Dispersing them like leaves in a tropical storm, Petro gritted her teeth and held the relic overhead, its light developing, more splendid and more splendid. Until it was practically blinding, she could feel the energy coursing through her body, the force of the outsider domain coursing through her veins. With a last resistant cry, she released the full force of the Curio, a light emission energy spearing out from the precious stone and piercing the core of the wormhole. The entry shivered and shook the texture of room time, undulating and tearing around it briefly. Everything appeared to pause its breathing, and afterward, with a last destructive blast, the wormhole imploded in on itself, the Void Masters and their cronies disappearing into the pit. The human armada ejected in cheers and festivity, the groups of boats embracing and crying with help. They had gotten it done. They had fixed the wormhole and saved the system from the danger of the Void rulers. However, even as they celebrated, Petro realized that their work was nowhere near finished. The Cosmic Board would most likely attempt to utilize this triumph for their own potential benefit, looking to state their predominance over different types of the system and the Void. Trackers were still out there, dispersed and leaderless, yet all at once, no less perilous. Yet again, they should be pursued down and disposed of individually before they could pull together and represent a danger, yet until further notice, Petro permitted herself a snapshot of fulfillment. She glanced around at her team, battered and wounded yet alive and triumphant. They had substantiated themselves as deserving of the trust set in them by the energy creatures, and they had saved endless lives simultaneously. She looked down at the gem of ancient rarity, presently dim and lethargic. In her grasp, it had filled its need, yet she realized that it was just the start. There were still such countless secrets to unwind and such countless difficulties to confront, yet with the force of HFY and the help of their new partners, Petro realized that mankind would be prepared to confront anything the future could hold. They had moved into a bigger universe, and there was no option but to press onward now. The Alliance Armada moved with reason, each boat falling into an arrangement as they arranged to execute the arrangement to seal the wormhole and save the system. From the approaching danger of the Void, Master's Minister Petro remained on the extension of the leader, her eyes fixed on the view screen, showing the whirling temperamental abnormality. Dr. Child and her group worked irately at their stations, making last computations and changes in accordance with the guarantee the gem of ancient rarity would work as expected, abruptly blasting alerts all through the boat minister. "We have an issue." The sensor administrator detailed, his voice tight with pressure. "A few boats from our new partners have broken development and are going after our Armada Petro. How could they turn on us now?" The view screen moved, uncovering a bunch of smooth outsider vessels terminating upon the Alliance ships. The going after ships moved with astonishing readiness and coordination, their weapons slicing through the Alliance's safeguards effortlessly. "We're getting a transmission from the lead transport." The correspondence official reported it's Orcs. The screen glinted, and the picture of a tall, overwhelming outsider seemed Zorg's eyes to shine with an obsessive light as he tended to Petro and the scaffold team's stupid people. He jeered as you looked to seal the wormhole and keep the system the salvation from getting the Void Masters. However, we, the genuine devotees, won't permit you to disrupt the general flow of their sublime return. Petro's hands grasped into clenched hands. Zorks, you're committing a horrendous error. The Void Rulers will annihilate everything, including you and your supporters. Zork snickered, a brutal and grinding sound. No, Minister, you are mixed up. The Void Rulers will scrub the system of the feeble and dishonorable, and we who serve them will be compensated with power beyond our imagination. As he talked, a gathering of Zorak's boats bankrupted away from the principal assault force and sped towards the leader, and presently we will take the precious stone curio and use it to open a long-lasting entryway for our lords. Petro went to the strategic official, focused on those boats, and fired freely. We can't allow them to get the relic, the leads, and the weapons thundered to life, spearing out towards the oncoming adversary vessels. The going after ships returned fire, their high-level safeguards engrossing the brunt of the Alliance's attack. Dr. Sorensen's eyes augmented as she concentrated on her sensor readings. Diplomats, there, not soon after the antiquity, focusing on our lives, the emotionally supportive networks and power centers they mean to us and leave us dead in space, Petro's jaw or fixed, not while I have anything to say about it. Rudder achieves us. We really want to keep the antiquity no longer a concern, no matter what. The leader went pointedly, barely staying away from a flood of foe fire, yet Zor's boats were tirelessly chasing after them with resolute assurance. They're shutting in the sensor. The administrator yelled. Petro settled on a brief moment choice. Dr. Sensen took the curio and got to the departure cases. We'll hold them off. However long we can wait. Dr. Sensen delayed the slightest bit, then gestured terribly. She got the precious stone curio and surged off the scaffold, joined by a group of world-class warriors. The leader shivered as Zorak's boats released an overwhelming volley of weapons, discharged comforts, detonated, and group individuals were tossed to the deck as the boat's frame clasped under the invasion. Petro grasped the arms of her seat, her knuckles white, and shot with everything. We have the leaders, weapons burst, and scoring direct hits on a few of the going after ships, yet it was short of what was needed. Zorg's boats, amassed over the lead like irate hornets beating it with persevering fire safeguards, are down. The strategic official announced frame breaks on decks 4 through 12 life support. Bombing Petro's heart sank as she understood the severe truth. They had lost, Zorks had outsmarted them, and presently he would hold onto the precious stone curio and destruction, the cosmic system to the oppression of the Void Rulers. However, even as despondency took steps to overpower her, a gleam of trust started in Petro's chest. Dr. Sensen and her group had gotten away with the relic on the off chance that they could simply arrive at the wormhole and utilize the gem to seal it before Zorak got up to speed to them. The leader shook again, more brutally this time. Minister, we've lost primary power. Life support is bombing across the boat. We want to leave transport. Petro shut her eyes briefly, then gestured. The clearing request all hands deserted transport and got to the departure units as the extension group mixed to obey. Petro took one final gander at the view screen. Zor's boats were shedding in their weapons, prepared to convey the killing blow. She said a quiet supplication for Dr. Sensen and her group, daring to dream that they would succeed where she had fizzled. At that point, squaring her shoulders, Envoy Petro turned and strode off the extension, prepared to confront anything that destiny anticipated. Her Dr. Sorensen's departure unit plunged through the disarray of the space to fight its inhabitants, gripping to their restrictions as the minuscule arch shook and shook. The precious stone relic sat in a defensive case at the specialist's feet. Its delicate gleam, giving the main brightening in the confined inside. We need to get to the wormhole, Dr. Sensen said in her stressed voice. It's our main opportunity to stop Zorks and seal the break before the void. Rulers got through, and the warriors gestured dismally at their countenances, scratching earnestly. They realized the stakes and realized that the destiny of the cosmic system lay on their shoulders. Unexpectedly, the brake unit shivered viciously as an impact of a fire struck its structure cautions and boomed and cautioned lights. Streaked, creating creepy shaded areas across the essences of the inhabitants' harm report, Dr. Sensen yapped, and one of the patch's warriors actually looked at his control center. His temple and wrinkling primary motors are disconnected. Life support is steady until further notice, yet we're out of commission. Dr. Sorensen's heart sank without motors. They were exposed targets. Zora's boats would arrive in minutes, and afterward, all futures were lost. However, even as misery took steps to overwhelm her, an unexpected thought streaked through her brain. The curio, she said, her eyes extending. We can utilize its ability to support our motors and get us to the wormhole. The fighters traded questionable looks. One of them asked, "We don't have the foggiest idea what that thing is equipped for." Dr. Sensen shook her head. "We don't have a decision. It's either this or we let Zorks win with shuddering hands." She opened the defensive case and lifted out the precious stone relic. It beat, with an inward light appearing to become more brilliant as she held it. "Overhead here goes nothing," she mumbled, and plunked the ancient rarity into the brake unit power center. Briefly. Then, at that point, with a blinding glimmer of light, the curio erupted to life, and the brake case reeled forward, its motors shouting as they flooded with recently discovered power. Dr. Sensen let out a whoop of happiness as the little art shot towards the wormhole, dominating the seeking after foe ships. However, her connection was fleeting. As another issue introduced itself, the antiquity is overburdening our frameworks. One of the troopers detailed his voice with caution. In the event that we don't close it down, it could destroy the unit. Dr. Sorensen's mind dashed as she attempted to track down an answer, yet before she could act, an enormous blast shook the departure case, sending it kiltering. What was it that she requested? The trooper checked his control center again, his face pale. "It's Zor's leader, he's right on top of us." Dr. Sorensen's heart pounded in her chest as she understood the horrible truth. They were in a tough situation and out of choices. Zorks would catch the antiquity and use it to open the wormhole, releasing the Void Masters upon the system. However, even as misery took steps to overpower her, Dr. Sorensen's determination solidified. She wouldn't allow it to end like this. Not easily decay all capacity to weapons. She requested that we bring that charlatan down with us. The troopers delayed the slightest bit, then gestured bleakly. They realized it was a self-destruction mission. However, they likewise realized it was their main opportunity to stop Zorks and save the cosmic system as the getaway unit rushed towards Zor's lead. Its weapons sparkling with the force of the precious stone ancient rarity. Dr. Sensen shut her eyes and thought about every individual. She had committed to safeguarding individuals on Earth, the courageous fighters who had battled and passed on close by, and the endless honest people across the universe who might endure assuming that the Void Masters were permitted to return. She wouldn't bomb them, not currently, not ever. With a last rebellious cry, Dr. Sensen shot the departure unit's weapons, pouring every last bit of her fury and assurance. Into the impact, the light emission energy speared out, hitting Zorak's leader with the power of 1,000 suns. Briefly, the universe appeared to pause its breathing. Then, with a blinding blaze of light, the leader detonated, its structure breaking into 1,000,000 pieces. Dr. Sensen listed back in her seat, a victorious grin all over. They had made it happen. Zorks was dead and the gem curio was protected. However, even as she relished her triumph, another issue introduced itself. The brake unit frameworks were bombing its power center, depleted by the enormous energy impact. They were floating defenselessly towards the world opening with no real way to stop themselves. Dr. Sorensen's mind hustled as she attempted to track down an answer, yet before she could act, another boat showed up on their faculties, a huge outsider vessel, its frame beating, with a creepy blue light. "What is that?" one of the troopers asked, his voice shuddering. Dr. Sensen shook her head. "I don't have the foggiest idea. However, I have a handle on what we're going to find." As the spacecraft lingered nearer, its expectations muddled. Dr. Sensen grasped the precious stone relic to her chest and set herself up for whatever lay ahead. The fight was won. However, the conflict was a long way from being done. Minister Petro's brake unit floated through the flotsam and jetsam fields, its tenants battered and wounded yet alive. They had figured out how to get away from the destined leader not long before it detonated, yet presently they confronted a questionable future. Petro gazed out the viewport at the twirling frenzy of the wormhole, her heart weighty with the information on what lay past the void, masters, old and horrendous creatures of unadulterated dimness standing by to consume the universe and all who lived inside it. She considered Dr. Sensen and her group of daring individuals who had forfeited all that to keep the gem of antiquity no longer any of Zorg's concern. She supplicated that they had succeeded and that the wormhole would be fixed and the system saved, yet even as she gripped to that expectation, Petro realized that the street ahead would be long and hard. The alliance had been broken, its boats dissipated, and its chiefs were dead or caught. The cosmic chamber would almost certainly attempt to utilize the tumult for their own potential benefit, looking to state their strength over the lesser types of the world, and afterward there were the Void Trackers, those puzzling and dangerous heroes who served the Void rulers. They were still out there, holding up in the shadows, prepared to strike all of a sudden. Petro's contemplations were intruded on by an unexpected hail from the communication framework. Minister Petro. This is the Starship Orion. We have you on our faculties. Is it true that you are in need of help? Petro's heart jumped at the recognizable voice. The Orion was one of Earth's most developed ships, told by, as a matter of fact, Skipper Era Tanaka himself, Chief Tanaka. You have no clue about the fact that meeting your voice is so great. Petro answered, a grin spreading across her face. We are needing quick help, our departure unit is harmed, and we are floating towards the wormhole figured out, Minister. We are coming, hold on, and we'll have you on board in the blink of an eye. Petro, reclined in her seat, watched over her with the Orion and its group. Close by, she realized that they had the potential for success against anything challenges lay ahead. As the Orion moved nearer, its smooth structure shining in the starlight permitted herself a snapshot of trust. The fight had been lost, however, the conflict was a long way from being done, and for however long there were those ready to battle for common decency, there would constantly be potential for what's in store. The Orion's docking inlet entryways slid open, uncovering an enormous space loaded up with the clamoring action of team individuals and experts. Petro's brake case coasted flawlessly into the cove, settling onto the deck, with a delicate crash as the unit's trapdoor murmured, opened. Petro and her kindred survivors were welcomed by seeing Commander Tanaka himself, flanked by a crew of outfitted security, and Staff Representative Petro was welcomed on board the Orion. Tanaka said, his voice warm and consoling. We've been checking what is happening, and we're here to assist in any capacity we can. Petro got out of the case, her legs unstable after the frightening trial she had recently endured. Much thanks to you, Commander. Your timing could never have been more perfect. Tanaka's face became serious. What occurred out there? Representative, we accepted your misery call, yet the subtleties were crude, and in the best-case scenario. Petro took a full breath. The recollections of the fight were still new to her, so Zorks and his supporters sent off an unexpected assault on the Alliance Armada. They were after the precious stone curio, the way to fixing the wormhole and halting the void. Ruler Tanaka's eyes augmented the gem's ancient rarity. Where could it presently be? Petro shook her head. I don't know if Dr. Sensen and her group got away with it, however, I lost contact with them during the fight. I might dare to dream that they prevailed in their main goal. Tanaka gestured horribly. Give it our best shot to track down their representative. Meanwhile, we really want to refocus and concoct an arrangement. The system is relying on us. Petro's heart expanded with appreciation and assurance. You're the correct commander. We can't allow Zor's treachery to break us. We need to continue to battle regardless of the expense, as she followed Tanaka and his group further into the ordeal. Petro couldn't shake the inclination that this was just the start of a long and troublesome excursion, yet with the Orion and its team close by, she realized that they would confront whatever difficulties lay ahead with fortitude and resolve the Orions. Span was a bustling place with team individuals monitoring their ST and transferring reports from across the boat. Skipper Tanaka sat in his order seat, his forehead wrinkled, as he concentrated on the strategic presentation. "What's our status, Lieutenant?" he asked, his voice tense. The strategic official, a young lady with short, dim hair, gazed upward from her control center. "All frameworks are ostensible, Chief. We've finished our compass of the region, and there's no indication of Dr. Sorensen's break case or the precious stone ancient rarity." Tanaka's sign, scouring his sanctuaries, continues to look. "They must be who knows where." Representative Petro remained alongside him, her arms crossed and her face carved with stress. "On the off chance that they didn't make it, Chief, imagine a scenario in which Zorks caught them and the relic." Tanaka shook his head. "We can't bear to think like that, diplomat. We want to accept that they prevailed in their main goal. The option is too horrible to even consider pondering." Unexpectedly, the sensor official's control center illuminated with a whirlwind of movement. "Chief, I'm getting a gigantic energy flood from the wormhole. It's out of this world." Tanaka jumped to his feet, his eyes wide on screen. The view screen gleamed to life, uncovering a sight that made Petro's blood run cold. The wormhole was beating with a frightful, wiped-out light, its edges squirming and contorting like the limbs of some gigantic monster and rising up out of its profundities. An armada of boats, not at all like anything Petro had at any point seen, gigantic rakish vessels, their bodies beating, with a similar spooky light as the actual wormhole. "My God," Tanaka relaxed. "It's the Void, Masters, they're here." Petro's heart pounded in her chest as she gazed at the screen. Her brain reeling with the ramifications of how the situation was playing out in the event that the Void rulers had gotten through the wormhole. That must be a certain something. Dr. Sensen and her group had fizzled. The precious stone antique was lost, and with it, the universe's last expected endurance. However, even as depression took steps to overpower her, Petro's determination and hard work were evident as she grasped the harmed gem relic firmly as she hustled through the passages of the boat, Dr. Sensen hot on her. The once smooth surface of the relic was presently damaged, with rough breaks beating with an inconsistent, wiped-out light. They burst into the lab, where a gathering of energy creatures looked for them, their ethereal structures glinting with expectation. "We don't have a lot of time," Petro gasped, putting the curio on the assessment table. "The wormhole is growing, and the Void rulers are getting through. We really want to fix this and seal the break before it's past the point of no return." Dr. Sensen gestured dismally, her temple wrinkled in focus as she filtered the curio with different instruments. The energy creatures floated close by, their clairvoyant voices reverberating in the personalities of the two ladies. "The harm is extreme, one of them is conditional, yet all at once it is not hopeless. We will direct you through the method involved with outfitting the Antiquity's power. However, you should act rapidly. The destiny of your universe remains in a precarious situation." Petro and Sensen worked hotly, their hands flying over the Antiquity as they followed the energy creatures, guidelines, and sparkles that flew, and the curio droned with power, its brakes gradually weaving back together under their cautious ministrations outside the boat. The fight seethed on. The human and outsider powers battled with frantic boldness, their weapons bursting as they battled to keep down the tide of eldritch repulsions that poured from the wormholes, expanding more odd-turned animals with such a large number of eyes and appendages suddenly erupted with dangerously sharp paws and teeth, while squirming limbs looked to ends catch and pulverize the courageous protectors in the core of the mayhem. A gigantic bulky figure rose up out of the profundities of the wormhole. It was a Void ruler, a being of unadulterated obscurity and malignance in its structure. Moving and beating with a supernatural power, it let out a bone-shaking thunder, and the safeguards quailed. Before its strength was back in the lab, Petro and Sensen looked in strongly as the boat shivered under the effect of a strong impact. "We're using up all the available time," Sensen said, her voice was tight with strain. "The curio is practically fixed, however, we want to draw it nearer to the wormhole to appropriately seal it." Petro's eyes enlarged with unexpected acknowledgement, and a dreary assurance settled over her elements. "I understand what I need to do," she said delicately, getting the ancient rarity and supporting it in her arms. "Diplomat." "No," Sensen cried, contacting her to stop her. "It's excessively risky. We can track it down another way." Petro shook her head, a miserable grin playing across her lips. There could be no alternate way specialist. The curio should be exploded from inside the actual wormhole, and I'm the one in particular who can make it happen. It's been an honor presenting with all of you. She went to the energy creatures, who respected her with serious regard. Much thanks to you for your direction and shrewdness. She said, she was bowing her head. I won't fail to remember how you have helped us with that petrostrove from the lab that the antique held firmly to her chest. She advanced toward the Holder Cove, where her own boat anticipated as she arranged to board. A voice shouted to her minister. Pause. It was Chief Tanaka. His face was carved with concern. You don't need to do this by yourself. Allow me to accompany you or send another person. We can't lose you, not after all that we've had to deal with. Petro grinned delicately, contacting fastened Tanaka's hand. I value your anxiety. Skipper, however, this is the kind of thing I need to do myself. The world requires you and your group to continue to battle to fill the void. Rulers at absolutely no point ever undermine us in the future. Guarantee me you'll protect them. Tanaka's eyes flickered with unshed tears, yet he gestured unfalteringly. I guarantee, diplomat. We won't leave your penance alone to no end. With a last gesture, Petro loaded up her boat and set off into the confusion of the fight. She evaded and wound through the frenzy of boats and animals, her eyes fixed on the whirling vortex of the wormhole ahead as she approached the entry. A gathering of master animals plunged on her boat, their paws tearing at the frame. Petro gritted her teeth and pushed the motors as far as possible, soaring forward, even as cautions, blasts, and sparkles flew from harmed frameworks. She burst through the squirming mass of animals and dove into the core of the wormhole, the relic beating with an always expanding force. The walls of the wormhole beat and she moved around, her unusual varieties and shapes blazing past her view screen in the last minutes. Petro's considerations went to her team, her partners, and the endless lives she had committed to safeguarding. She shut her eyes, a feeling of harmony washing over her as she initiated the curio, pouring every last bit of her will and energy into its power. The curio detonated in a blinding blaze of unadulterated brilliant energy, immersing Petro's boat and the encompassing wormhole in a burning flood of light. The wormhole shook and contorted its texture, disentangling and falling in on itself with a stunning thunder from an external perspective. The human and outsider powers watched in wonder as the wormhole collapsed, the Void Masters and their cronies evaporating in a last calamitous explosion of energy. Cheers emitted from the partnered ships as the acknowledgement of their triumph sank in touch, with a significant feeling of misfortune for the daring envoy who had given her life to save them generally. As the residue settled and the boat started to refocus, a feeling of trust and assurance filled the hearts of every one of the people who had battled and made do. They realized that the street ahead would be long and troublesome, yet with the penance of Representative Petro and the solidarity fashioned during the most intense part of the conflict, they were prepared to confront anything challenges lay ahead. The legend of Envoy Petro's valiance and magnanimity spread all through the cosmic system, rousing ages to come. Her inheritance lived on a sparkling, encouraging sign and flexibility despite even the haziest of dangers, and however the world could. Always remember the repulsions of the Void Masters. They would constantly recall the legend who had given all that to save them. All the cosmic board chambers were worked up. Delegates from different species yelled and contended, their voices reverberating off the high roofs. At the focal point of the tumult stood the gathering's initiative, their appearances terrible and crushed. This is a shock, a tall, insectoid delegate murmured. The board's activities have brought disgrace upon every one of us. My kin won't represent such misdirection and weakness. Comparable feelings were reverberated by different agents' resentment and frustration. Tangible the committees, when solid unions were disintegrating directly in front of them. Amidst the unrest, President Martinez strode into the chambers, flanked by a designation of the Earth's most conspicuous pioneers and negotiators. The room fell quiet as she took her spot at the platform. Her presence and consideration of individuals from the cosmic gathering. Martinez started her voice. Clear and faithful. The new emergency has uncovered the real essence of this association. The committee's eagerness to forfeit individuals of Earth for its own benefit isn't just indefensible, but additionally an unmistakable infringement of the very standards upon which this body was established. Mumbles of understanding undulated through the accumulated agents. Martinez proceeded with Earth and its partners have shown that participation and straightforwardness are the keys to keeping up with harmony and steadiness in the system. It is the ideal opportunity for the gathering to embrace these qualities and work towards a superior future for all species. She framed her proposed changes, which included standard reviews of the gathering's exercises, the foundation of a free oversight panel, and the consideration of non-part species in board thoughts. The committee initiative listened, their countenances carved with acquiescence, and as Martinez finished up her discourse, the insectoid delegate rose to talk. The carrion domain remains with Earth. They pronounced we would pull out of the chamber and produce another way close by our human partners. Different species stuck to this same pattern, declaring their aim to leave the board and fall in line with the Earth. The chamber administration, confronted with the breakdown of their association, had no real option except to acknowledge Martinez's requests in the long stretches of time that followed Earth's impact. Human ambassadors worked indefatigably to lay out new unions and reinforce existing ones. The cosmic chamber now makes a sorry excuse for its previous attempt to adjust to the new request. Earth's armada, reinforced by the cutting-edge innovation of its partners, turned into an imposing power in the universe. Human boats watched the space paths, guaranteeing well-being and security. All things considered, the once cracked system started to mend under the standard of participation and common regard. President Martinez, hailed as a visionary chief, kept on pushing for progress and change. She met with the heads of incalculable species, fashioning new bonds and setting out open doors for cooperation. Under her direction, the Earth turned into an encouraging sign of security in a cosmic system that had for some time been tormented by struggle and doubt. As the residue settled and the world entered another time of harmony, individuals on Earth focused on the stars with re-established trust and assurance. They had confronted the best danger. The universe had at any point known and arisen, triumphant not through the power of arms, but rather through the force of solidarity and empathy. What was to come was brilliant, and Earth would lead in the manner in which the sun sparkled splendidly on the shining metal and clean stone of the recently divulged landmark. It stood tall and pleased, a demonstration of the valiance and penance of the people who had given their lives to save Earth and the system from the void rulers. The names of the fallen were scratched into the foundation of the sculpture, with diplomat Sasha Petrov's name conspicuously showed up in the middle of Dr. Lena Sensen. Her light hair, presently streaked with silver, remained before the landmark, her eyes fixed on Petrov's name. She might, in any case, recall the savage assurance in the diplomat's eyes as she bid goodbye to her team and flew her boat into the core of the wormhole. The memory carried a tear to Sorensen's eye, which she immediately cleaned away. Dr. Sensen, a voice called out from behind her, went to see a figure moving toward their elements, darkened by a shine and clear cover. As the figure moved nearer, the cloak separated to uncover a being made of unadulterated energy, its structure moving and beating, with a delicate ethereal gleam. "You're one of the energy creatures," Sen said, her eyes broadening in acknowledgement. "What brings you here?" is the being drifting nearer, its voice reverberating to Sorensen. "I come bearing a message, Dr. Sensen." Envoy Petrov's penance was not to no end. Her substance has become one with the texture of the universe perpetually, preparing for the danger of the Void Masters. Sensation experienced a glow spread through her chest at the being's words, a feeling of solace and trust that she hadn't felt in years. "I generally realized she was bound to succeed sooner or later," she said delicately, a little grin playing at the sides of her mouth, the energy being beat with a more brilliant sparkle, as though gesturing in understanding, yet I likewise accompany an admonition. It proceeded with its tone developing, becoming more serious. "The world will confront new difficulties and risks in the years to come. Earth and its partners should stay cautious and join together." Notwithstanding these dangers, Sorensen's grin blurred, supplanted by a look of horrid assurance. "Yet again," she said solidly, "we won't leave Envoy Petrov's penance alone to no end, the energy being beat prior to starting to disappear its structure. Developing. Increasingly more clear, see that you don't Dr. Sensen. The destiny of the system might depend on it. As the being vanished from view, Sensen turned around to the landmark her look by, and by falling on Petro's name, she connected and put a hand on the cool metal inclination, a feeling of association with the fallen legend. "We won't let you down, Minister," she murmured. "Your inheritance will live on, and we will battle to safeguard the harmony and success you gave your life for," with a last gesture of regard. Sensen dismissed and strolled from the landmark, her brain previously dashing with plans and thoughts for how to reinforce the Earth's guards and collusions. She realized that the road ahead would be long and troublesome. However, she additionally knew that as long as the memory of legends, similar to Representative Petro, lived on, the cosmic system would constantly have trust. The cosmic gathering chamber was worked up with agents from different species yelling and motioning in fiercely. The insight about Earth's plentiful water supply had sent shock waves through the cosmic local area, and the committee was battling to find a sense of peace with the ramifications. "This changes everything for a tall, insectoid delegate," hissed, pummeling its mauled clenched hand on the platform. "The people have been concealing this from us for a really long time. Who can say for sure what different insider facts they're keeping? We should request that they share their water innovation with the remainder of the cosmic system." And another representative, a Latinous mass with throbbing eye, sputtered. "It's quite reasonable," as the discussion seeded on an unexpected caution blasting through the chamber, making the representatives fall quiet. A holographic presentation glimmered to life in the focal point of the room, showing a huge, unidentified article plunging through space at mind-boggling speeds. "For the sake of Zorix, is that a representative?" panting, his eyes extending in shock. The item, which was before long uncovered to be a monster spaceship of obscure beginning, was on an immediate course for Earth. The committee watched with staggered skepticism as it overlooked all endeavors at correspondence and proceeded with its constant methodology. "High should send an armada to block it," a representative yelled, yet others shook their heads, chance beginning a conflict with an obscure foe. "We can't bear the cost of that presently." One more contended as the committee slid into quarreling and hesitation. The obscure boat attracted increasingly close to Earth on the blue planet. Insight about the coming vessel had fanned out like quickly, causing a broad frenzy and tumult, riots to break out in significant urban areas as individuals battled about provisions and looked for cover from the looming destruction. Amidst the unrest, President Martinez sat in her office, her face fixed with stress and depletion. She had quite recently completed a strained call with the Cosmic Board, who had clarified that they wouldn't send any help because we're all alone. She said bleakly, going to the two ladies situated opposite her representative, "Petro, Dr. Sensen, I want your assistance." Petro, a tall, thin lady with puncturing green eyes, is inclined forward in her seat. "I've been concentrating on the energy creature's innovation," she said. Her voice was quiet and estimated. "I accept that I might have the option to utilize it to speak with the coming boat and find its purpose." Sensen, an unimposing bespectacled lady, with a shock of red hair, gestured in understanding, "And I've been chipping away at an arrangement to empty however many individuals as would be prudent from Earth." In the event, Martinez murmured vigorously, the heaviness of the world on her shoulders. "Do anything you need to do." She spoke in her voice, scarcely over a murmur. "The destiny of our planet is in your grasp." As Petro and Sensen left the president's office, they could hear the hints of turmoil and frenzy reverberating through the corridors of the public authority. Working externally, the sky was dim and foreboding, as though the very sky were pausing their breathing in expectation. In her lab, Petro worked hotly to adjust the energy being's innovation to the main job. She had gone through months concentrating on the peculiar ethereal gadgets, attempting to open their insider facts now that time was expiring. She implored that her endeavors would be sufficient. "Minister, we're prepared," one of her collaborators said. "Give her a shining." Throbbing circle, Petro gestured, her jaw set earnestly. "Let's get down to business." She moved forward to the correspondence exhibit. The circle grasped firmly, taking a full breath. She zeroed in her psyche on the coming boat connecting energetically with an obscure vessel. "This is a representative, Sasha Petro of the Earth." She said so in her voice, reverberating through the lab. We come in harmony. Kindly answer briefly. There was just quiet, then a weird outsider voice occupied the room, its tone cruel and throaty. We are the vanguard, it said, each word trickling with danger. We have come to guarantee what is our own. Petro felt a chill run down her spine, however, she constrained herself to stay cool. What do you look for? She asked, her voice consistent. Your water. The voice answered its words, sending a shock wave of dread through the lab. Your planet has what we really want to get by, and we will take it forcibly if it is fundamental. As the correspondence finished, Petro staggered back from the cluster, her heart beating in her chest. She gazed toward her aides, their faces pale with dread. We need to caution the president. She said, her voice shuddered, and we needed to figure out how to stop them in our own lab. Dr. Simpson was working quickly to conclude her departure plan. She had been in touch with pioneers from around the world, organizing endeavors to get as many individuals off the planet as could be expected under the circumstances. Dr. Sorensen. We have an issue. One of her collaborators said, his name. Pale. The obscure boat is speeding up. It will arrive at Earth surprisingly fast, not days. Simpson felt a rush of frenzy wash over her, but she shoved it to the side. Then, at that point, we need to work quicker. She said, her voice loaded up sincerely. We can't allow that boat to arrive on Earth. We need to figure out how to stop it. As the two ladies attempted to beat the clock, the obscure boat moved at any point nearer its gigantic mass, annihilating the stars. Individuals of Earth watched in dread, their destiny yet to be determined in the cosmic board chamber. The representatives proceeded to contend and discuss the approaching destruction. They had no clue that the destiny of a whole world was going to be chosen, and that their own frivolous quarrels would before long be trivial on the planet. Petro and Simpson worked indefatigably, their psyches dashing as they looked for an answer to the inconceivable issue before them. They realized that the situation was anything but favorable for them, that they were confronting a foe, dissimilar to any they had at any point experienced, yet they likewise realized that they had no way out of the destiny of their planet, and maybe the whole world lay on their shoulders and they wouldn't allow it to fall. As the obscure boat entered Earth's circle, its monstrous mass creating a shaded area over the planet, Petro and Simpson traded a look of terrible assurance. Here we go, Petro said in her voice, scarcely over a murmur, and with that, they arranged to confront the best test of their lives, realizing that disappointment was impossible. As the VAR Ark lingered in Earth's skies, its monstrous body shutting out the sun, diplomat Petro and her group mixed to lay out contact. Utilizing the energy being's high-level correspondence innovation, they conveyed a hail on all frequencies, expecting a reaction for a few tense minutes. There was only static. Then, at that point, a profound, thundering voice occupied the control room. Individuals of Earth, the voice started, each word weighty with power. I'm Zal, head of the Vari. We have come to your reality, looking for asylum and the necessary resources to guarantee our endurance. Petro traded a look with her group prior to answering. Good tidings. I'm Envoy, Sasha Petro of Earth. We invite quiet contact with your family, however, we should know your goals. Why have you come to our planet? There was a respite. Then Zal talked once more. Our home world was obliterated. Quite a while ago, a calamity tore the actual texture of existence, a wormhole, similar to the one your kin as of late experienced. We have been meandering the stars since looking for another home. Petro felt a chill run down her spine. The Vari story was frightfully like their own new brush with obliteration, and you accept Earth can be simply home. She asked if we were drawn here by the energy mark of your reality's plentiful water. Zal made sense of our innovation. Our very science is reliant upon a particular kind of fluid water tracked down just on a small bunch of planets. Earth is one of them. Dr. Simpson, who had been tuning in, eagerly inclined forward, yet Earth's water is equal to our own endurance too. We can't just surrender it. Z's voice took on a harder edge. We grasp your anxiety, yet you should likewise figure out our distress. Without access to your water, our kin will die. We don't wish to take it forcibly, yet we will do what we must to guarantee our endurance. President Martinez, who had been deliberating with her guide, ventured forward. I understand your kin's predicament, however, I can't, in that frame of mind, deliver our planet's most valuable asset. Maybe we can figure out how to share it to track down a trade-off that benefits both our groups. There was a long, tense silence, then Zal talked in his low voice, threatening you have one Earth day to settle on your choice. In the event that you don't consent to our terms, we will have no real option except to take what we want forcibly. The correspondence cut off suddenly, leaving the control room in staggered quiet. Martinez went to Petro and Sorensen. Her face is dismal. We want an answer, and quick. I'm connecting with the Cosmic Board for help. Yet, given these late occasions, I'm not hopeful that'll help. Petro gesture her brain. Hustling Dr. Simpson, and I will continue to attempt to lay out a discourse with the Vari to track down a quiet goal, yet we should likewise plan for the most terrible, as the president left, to make her supplication to the gathering. Petro went to her group. I need each accessible researcher and ambassador to deal with this. We want to figure out how to speak with the Vari to grasp their innovation and their requirements, and we want to do it before they follow through with their aggressive message. The group mixed right into it, every part centered around their relegated task, yet even as they worked, the phantom of war lingered over them, and the shift arc hung overhead like a blade of Damocles, a steady sign of the great stakes they lifted in the Cosmic Board loads. President Martinez put forth her defense to the gathered delegates. She talked energetically about the Earth's predicament and the requirement for fortitude despite this new danger. However, her words failed to be noticed. The counselors, as yet stinging from the new disclosures of their own mysteries and the developing distress among their species, were reluctant to reach out. They contended that the Earth had brought this emergency upon itself and that it was not the board's liability to rescue them. Martinez left the chambers baffled and furious, yet all at once, not altogether astounded. She had consistently realized that Earth would need to face its own conflicts and that the cosmic gathering was more keen on keeping up with its own power than on advancing everyone's benefit. Back on Earth, pressures were rising. Insight about the fluctuating danger had spilled over to the general population, and frenzy was spreading. Far and wide mobs broke out in significant urban communities. As individuals battled about diminishing supplies of food and water, the military was brought in to re-establish requests. However, even though they were extended, the slim minister, Petro, and Dr. Simpson worked resolutely to track down an answer, yet progress was slow. The Vari innovation was not normal for anything they had at any point seen, and correspondence was hampered by the immense social and phonetic contrasts between the two species. As the cutoff time drew closer, the circumstances became increasingly frantic. The Vari arc lingered nearer and nearer its weapon frameworks, fueled up and prepared. Earth's safeguards were on guard, yet against the sheer size and force of the spacecraft, they appeared to be horribly deficient. In a final desperate attempt to keep away from carnage, Petro and Sinan chose to face a frantic challenge. They would head out to the Vari Arc themselves to meet with Zal eye to eye and attempt to arrange a tranquil goal as they arranged for their main goal. The two ladies shared a snapshot of calm reflection. Action, how about we do this? Simpson asked, her voice shaking somewhat, and Petro put a consoling hand on her companion's shoulder. We need to, she said immovably. The destiny of two universes relies upon it with a last gesture of assurance. The two ladies boarded their bus and set off towards the Vari Arc, their hearts weighty with the heaviness of the errand before them. They realized that the situation was anything but favorable for them and that they were strolling into a place of extreme peril. However, they likewise realized that they had no way out. The endurance of their kin and of the Vari remained in a precarious situation. As the bus moved toward the enormous spacecraft, Petro and Simpson stole themselves. For whatever lay ahead, they had confronted inconceivable chances before they gazed intently at death and obliteration and arose triumphant. They could trust that their karma and their abilities would hold out once again. The destiny of two universes lay on their shoulders, and they wouldn't let them down. They would figure out how to overcome any issues between their people groups to find an answer that would save them all, or they would pass on attempting the tent deadlock among Earth, and they rapidly spiraled wild. The Vari fanatics, reluctant to think twice about it, set off an overwhelming shock assault on the planet's basic water foundation. Multitudes of chained strikecraft slid through the environment, barraging water treatment, plant supplies, and pipelines with concentrated plasma fire. The night sky illuminated with foreboding red and orange blazes as the outsiders' weapons attacked their objectives. The outer layer of the Detroit stream stirred and foamed, blasts tearing through the water as the Vari impacted separated consumption pipes that provided the city. A huge number of gallons of water spouted out of cracked mains, flooding roads and lowering vehicles. High-rises in Manhattan shivered as rail firearms adjusted from a change frigate punched through water towers on their rooftops, sending deluges of water flowing down their sides on the edges of Mexico City. A gathering of various commandos took on a horrible conflict with Earth Protection Force troops at the Kamala Repository and siphoning station programmed weapons. Discharge jabbered as the different sides exchanged shots and slugs pinged off the VAR's high-level shield. The outsider officers moved with exact, practically mechanical effectiveness, efficiently gunning down the outclassed people, then falling back to the auxiliary cautious line. Sergeant Ramirez yelled over the bedlam, dodging as a plasma bolt sizzled over his head. The EDF officers withdrew from battered gatherings, abandoning a large number of their dead and injured. As the conflict progressed, the scene was being rehashed all around the planet. Earth's safeguards, currently stressed from the past emergency, were being overpowered by the unexpected all-out outsider attack on their most weak asset. Millions were dead or kicking the bucket cut off from the water they expected to get by. The Vari had struck an overwhelming blow in the White House circumstance room. President Martinez and her consultants watched the horrendous scenes unfold on the screens before them with a blend of shock and wrath. The loss of life was at that point disastrous and moving continuously, Lady President. We really want to hit them back at this point. General Titten snarled, wounding a finger at the picture of the Vari arc in a circle. On the off chance that we let them pull off this, they'll simply continue coming until essentially nothing remains. Martinez grasped her clenched hands, her knuckles becoming white, and the general was correct. The Vari had left them no decision. She needed to act now or her kin would have no future by any stretch of the imagination. Do it, she said, through gritted teeth, cripple that arc. I need them kneeling down, asking for kindness. The general gestured dismally, previously moving to hand off the orders. The full kin of Earth's military held for possible later use up to this point was going to be neglected. In the darkness of the room, the variable arc hung in a circle, its surface shuddering with weapons. In positions, the HFY Armada moved to connect with rockets and laser cannons primed and ready. The different sides conflicted in a titanic space fight, Earth transport amassing, the bigger fluctuating vessel like hornets going after a bear. However, the VAR curve's protections were serious areas of excessive strength. Its safeguard disregarded the HFY Armada's most impressive weapons, while its own firearms tore the human boats. Separated with merciless effectiveness, the calls of biting the dust and etch staff filled the comms as many boats were reduced to liquid slag, and afterward it worked out. A fortunate fireman fired from an EF rail firearm, entering a flimsy part of the arc's safeguards. A gout of fire emitted from the spacecraft structure, trailed by a chain of second blasts. The arc shivered, its lights glimmering, and afterward it exploded in a blinding blaze of light. The blast was so splendid. It very well may be seen from the outer layer of the Earth. A smaller than expected cosmic explosion illuminating the sky. Flotsam and jetsam poured down through the air, flaring lumps of metal that had once been home to a whole species. In the circumstance room, there was a snapshot of shocked quiet as the greatness of what had simply occurred sank in, and then the room ejected in a melody of cheers and commendation. They had made it happen. They had saved Earth, yet not every person was commending diplomat Petro watching the live feed from the UN building. In New York, she felt an empty pit open up in her stomach. The Vari had been in essence cleared out, their last expected endurance snuffed out in a moment, and it had been Earth's finger on the trigger. What have we done? She murmured, tears gushing in her eyes. There must be another way, there's generally another way, yet it was past the point of no return. The deed was finished, and the outcomes would be felt for a long time into the future. Earth had won the fight, however, at what cost? They had taken care of themselves, yet in doing so, they had made a foe of the whole world. The cosmic chamber burned through no time in ensuring Earth's activities. The Vari had been a quiet animal type, they guaranteed, headed to franticness by the deficiency of their home. The world's reaction had been unbalanced and fierce. On a cosmic scale, individually, Earth's partners betrayed the Bagur planet. Economic deals were destroyed, conciliatory ties were cut off in the chamber, devastating ascents were forced, removing Earth from the assets and innovation it was expected to remake, and meanwhile, the disdain and hatred for the Earth developed. The Vari had been a misfortune, yet they were a long way from the main species with resentment against the upstart people. Earth had made such a large number of foes, cut off such a large number of ties. They were distant from everyone else in the universe. Presently, an outsider state is disregarded and totally evaded. President Martinez, when hailed as a legend, regarded herself as progressively disengaged and plagued by pundits on all sides. Envoy Petro was one of the most intense, utilizing her foundation to require a full examination concerning the choice to go after the Vari Ark. "Have we gotten an opportunity to be preferable over this?" Petro said in an enthusiastic discourse to the ungeneral gathering, to track down a quiet answer for fabricating spans as opposed to copying them. In any case, we wasted that opportunity, and presently we should live with the results. Yet even as the Earth battled to find some peace with its new reality, another danger was rising up out of the depths of the room. The Vari had been just the start. Something antiquated and strong had been watching from the shadows, sticking around for its opportunity, and presently, with Earth at its most vulnerable, it was prepared to strike. The world could, at absolutely no point, ever go back in the future. The fire emergency had left the Earth in ruins. Surged from the singed stays of once incredible urban communities, their transcending high-rises now just bent metal and broke glass. The roads were gagged with rubble, flotsam, and jetsam, and the air was thick with the harsh odor of death and annihilation. In the core of the destruction, a gathering of survivors clustered together, their countenances streaked with soil and grime. They talked in quiet murmurs, their eyes dashing anxiously from one side to another as they rummaged for food and supplies. "Did you hear what befell President Martinez?" one of them asked, and his voice shuddered with dread. "I heard she was killed in the assault on the Capitol." One more answered, shaking his head. "Unfortunately, the dissident raged at the castle and executed her before a transmission." The notice of the separatists sent a chill down their spines. Driven by the charming and heartless Marcus Dante, the gathering had arisen in the fallout of the Vari emergency, imploring on the trepidation and distress of the survivors. Dante was a previous fighter who had battled in the conflict against the Vari. He had seen firsthand the pulverization created by the outsiders and had become persuaded that the world's just expectation for endurance was to cut all binds with the cosmic gathering and the remainder of the system. "We can't confide in the chamber." He had proclaimed this in a searing discourse to his supporters. "They deserted us in our hour of need, and presently they try to control us, to twist us to their will. We should remain solitary and fashion our own fate among the stars." Dante's words had hit a chord with a large number of the survivors who had lost everything in the conflict and presently considered the gathering to be a far-off, unfeeling substance. They escaped locked to his standard, furnished with anything weapons they might rummage from the vestiges of Earth's urban areas. From the start, President Martin Luther had attempted to persuade the separatists to track down a quiet answer for the emergency. However, Dante wouldn't be influenced. He sent off a progression of wrecking assaults on the Earth's leftover framework, focusing on power plants, water treatment offices, and correspondence organizations. As the circumstances on Earth crumbled into an all-out nationwide conflict, Representative Petro regarded herself as trapped in the center. She had consistently put stock in the significance of cosmic collaboration and tact and had worked vigorously to fashion partnerships among Earth and different types of the universe. In any case, presently, with the Earth destroying itself and the gathering apparently feeble to mediate, she started to address all that she had at any point had confidence in. She realizes that Dante and his devotees saw her as a swindler, a mannequin of the board who had sold out her own kin for some of their ideal. She likewise realizes that they will remain determined to quiet her to take out any voice of resistance to their goal, thus the overwhelming sadness. She went with the choice to crawl under a rock to vanish into the shadows and trust that the right second will strike back against the separatists. Dr. Simpson, in the meantime, ended up being attracted to Dante's goal by large numbers of the survivors. She had lost everything in the conflict: her home, her family, her whole lifestyle. She had once been a splendid researcher, devoted to opening the mysteries of the universe and involving them to improve all species. However, presently, as she watched the gatherings in action and lack of concern, notwithstanding the Earth's misery, she started to see them from an alternate perspective. They were not kind-hearted watchmen. She had once trusted them to be, but instead a bad and self-serving substance that didn't really focus anything on the existences of those they guaranteed to secure. Thus, she made the critical choice to join Dante's objective of lending her aptitude and information to the separatists in their battle. Against the board and its partners, she realizes that it implied betraying all that she had once represented on the standards of science and reason that had directed her all through her life. Yet even with the unfathomable revulsions she had seen, the endless lives lost and the once extraordinary urban communities decreased to rubble, she saw no other decision. The committee had bombed them, and presently it depends on individuals on Earth to fashion their own way and make another future for themselves. Among the stars, as the nationwide conflict seated on the destiny of Earth and the system remained in a precarious situation, the separatists, furnished with cutting-edge weapons and innovation, searched from the remnants of the different transports and set off a progression of pulverizing assaults on the planet's outstanding urban communities and fortresses. At long last, understanding the seriousness of the circumstances, an armada of warships was dispatched to Earth in a frantic endeavor to control the uprising. However, it was short of what was needed. The separatists had previously acquired an excess of ground, and their positions expanded as time passed. As an ever-increasing number of survivors rushed to Dante's flag amidst the turmoil, Envoy Petro and Dr. Simpson ended up on opposite sides of the contention. Each battling for what they accepted was correct. Petro, actually gripping to her standards of tact and participation, worked enthusiastically to facilitate a harmony bargain between the separatists and the chamber. However, Dante wouldn't be influenced. He saw Petro as a double-crosser to her own kin, a mannequin of the board who had sold out Earth for some grandiose ideal. Thus, he requested his supporters to chase her down to dispose of the last voice of resistance to his goal. Sensing, in the interim, hurled herself entirely into her work with the separatists, utilizing her insight into cutting-edge innovation to make new weapons and protections for Dante's military. She realized that she was double-crossing all that she had once represented, yet despite the committee's inaction and detachment, she saw no other decision. The two previous partners once joined, but as they continued looking for information and grasping, they presently ended up on opposite sides of a severe and ridiculous clash, and as the nationwide conflict seethed on the destiny of Earth and the universe, they remained in a critical state. Standing by to see which side would arise triumphantly eventually, the roads of New York lay in ruins, high-rises disintegrated, fires southed, and the once lively city was currently a disaster area. Marcus Dante's dissident powers conflicted with the leftovers of the Earth's safeguarding force in a severe fight for control. Shots zoomed through the air, blasts shook the ground, and the shouts of the perishing filled the roads. President Martinez sat in the Oval Office, her head in her grasp. The reports from the bleeding edges were bleak, the separatists were making strides, and the EDF was being pushed back on all fronts. She realizes that there is simply no time to spare on the off chance that she doesn't figure out how to end the conflict. Before long, there probably won't be an Earth passed on to save unexpectedly a splendid light. The sky Martinez admired saw a huge armada of cosmic committee ships plummeting from the sky. In brief, she felt a hint of something to look forward to. Perhaps the gathering had at last woken up and chosen to assist with re-establishing harmony on Earth. However, as the boats landed and the chamber's soldiers started to send, Martinez's expectation went to fear. The board's warriors walked through the roads not to battle the separatists, but rather to hold on to control of the Earth's water treatment plants and repositories. They constrained their direction into the offices, shoved aside the F watches, and assumed command over the hardware Martinez's comm signaled. It was the committee's chief, a tall, overwhelming figure named Zork's President Martinez. He said it, his voice dribbling with bogus genuineness. The Cosmic Chamber has come to your aid in your period of scarcity. We will assist you with controlling this defiance and re-establishing a request to your reality, all we ask consequently. If you hand over control of your water assets to us, it's worth it for our assurance. And backing Martinez gritted her teeth. She realized that the board was simply utilizing the emergency on Earth to add to their own plan. They couldn't have cared less about individuals on Earth or the separatist cause. They simply needed to control the planet's most significant asset. In any case, what decision did she have? The EDF was losing the conflict, and without the committee's assistance, the separatists would certainly win. She was unable to allow that to occur. She needed to safeguard her kin, regardless of whether it implied making an arrangement with Satan. Fine. She said in her voice, scarcely over a murmur, you can have the water, simply assist us with finishing. This war. Zorak grinned, his teeth flickering in the illumination. Obviously, President Martinez, the gathering is consistently eager to assist its companions out of luck. However, even as the Chamber's soldiers conveyed across the planet, another danger was arising. Representative Petro, who had been working in the background to construct an alliance of Earth's partners, had found reality with regards to the committee's bad and self-serving plan. She had been furtively working with a gathering of revolutionary Cosmic Chamber individuals who went against the committee's initiative, and together they devised a strategy to uncover the board's real essence and deal with them. Petro strode into the committee's war room, flanked by a gathering of intensely equipped fighters from Earth's United Universes. Zorks! She yelled, her voice ringing out across the room. The game is up. We understand what you're truly after, but you haven't arrived. To assist with earthing, you're here to take advantage of it for your own benefit. Zorak twirled around his eyes, limiting Minister Petro scoffed. I ought to have known you'd be behind this. You've forever been a thistle on the gathering side, and for good explanation, Petro shot back. The gathering has turned into a bad and self-serving organization, more intrigued by its own power than the government assistance of the cosmic system. It's the ideal opportunity for a change with that. She gestured to her troopers, who evened out their weapons at Zorks and his watchmen. Give up now, Petro requested, and you will be given a fair preliminary for your wrongdoings. Oppose, and we will take you forcibly. Zorak's eyes dashed around the room, looking for an exit plan, yet he was encircled, outgunned, and outclassed. He had no real option except to give up. As Zorks and his attendant were driven away in binds, Petro went to her partners. This is only the start, she said, her eyes bursting sincerely. We have a great deal of work in front of us on the off chance that we will establish the debasement in the Cosmic Chamber and re-establish justice to the world, yet together I realize we can do it with that. She walked around the war room, prepared to confront any difficulties that lay ahead. The fight for Earth might have been won, yet the battle for the spirit of the system was simply starting. On the off chance that you finish this story, if it's not too much trouble, buy in and like the video. Leave a remark that says, I like the story, and I will heart each and every one of them. It truly helps me. Much thanks to you for your time.